waste my life. I don't wanna waste my life. Living in this world.
With the beats.
It's just some things, there's no going back. You know what I'm saying?
JWoodBeats.com.
Yeah, I'm not the one with the issues. I hear you. Now here is your tissue. If I'm moving too fast, I might have to dismiss you. And it's really too bad, cause I really will miss you. But I'm not the one with the issues. I left him at church when I made it official. I murdered the curse with my own benediction. Left God in the dirt, call it death of the fiction. Superstition will be served an eviction. Competition will be left in the ditch. Oh my God, it's too damn hot in this kitchen. The fishes of men are now swimming with fishes. Oops, my bad, I guess I'm moving too vicious. Verses sold, I gotta put them on your wish list. Bless my soul, cause I'm dodging your little hit list. I guess you know, you just lost another witness.
Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go right now. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, I'm out of here.
I can do anything. Fuck your opinions and energy. I finally got the epitome. My biggest hindrance was God can't do nothing but fail. Greater is me. I never needed your deity. All of this human capacity. When it gets rough, I can pick myself up and prevail. Cause I don't need anything other than people who fuck with me. Good business, it starts with good company. That's why your boy is obsessed with community. Cause greater is we. We can create opportunity. Doing what God never did, cause a God never could. But a people is all we need.
Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, yeah. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go right now. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, yeah. Gotta let me go, gotta let me go, gotta let me go, I'm out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in on this Sunday night. Look at that, my phone showing and everything. Y'all gonna be all in my messages. Welcome in for another, what is it? The X-Pastor Call-In Show. This is our 6th episode, and I am absolutely excited to have you all in here with us. Kyle and I started this, 6 episodes ago, and I had no clue that this would absolutely become the most popular show on our channel, but it makes sense. And so first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody in. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this community channel or content in any way that makes sense for you. And of course, check out the merch because it's dope as fuck. And I'm not just saying that. This is real facts. Like our merch is dope. So check that shit out. Okay. So this is a space where your thoughts, questions, and struggles take center stage. Whether you're wrestling with doubts, curious about faith, or have burning questions you've always wanted to ask a pastor, this is the place for you. Here we value open dialogue and honest conversations, free from superstition and full of understanding. This is one of the most awesome places to be on the first Sunday of every month. So a few quick announcements. Number one, this is something that we've started doing on all of our live shows and in even some of our pre-recorded content. I'm curious to know where you're watching from. One of our missions, our biggest mission as Bridge City Global, which is the community building aspect, is to build community beyond superstition. And we really want to do that from a global perspective and a local perspective. So we want to know where you are because we're absolutely building a map of where all of our supporters are, where everybody who is looking and passionate about building community, we want to know where you are so we can start pouring into those local hubs. So give us a shout out in the chat. Let us know city and state, province. Don't give us your street number. You don't want any stalkers or nothing like that, but you know what the deal is. And then also in the past quarter, we've released 2 new books. Christ Held Up, the one that you can see over my shoulder. Let me see if I get this right. I did. Yep, that one. It's available on Amazon. I released it probably about 2 months ago. And then just this month, literally this past Friday, was that 2 days ago? It was. I just released Black Nonbeliever Next Door. And I'm actually supposed to be showing y'all these books. So I took for granted that the fact that Christ Held Up is behind me, but bam, now you can see it on the screen. That's on Amazon. Go check that out. If you're looking to have, okay, that's just knocking my face out, but, and I did it. But if you're looking to have some more sympathetic, empathetic conversations with some believers whom you absolutely love, but you want to be able to have some grounded conversations about their beliefs, then this book is an absolutely excellent tool for that. But then also Black Non-Believer Next Door. If you're curious, let me come over here. Like, no, I think it's easier for me to come over here. Bam. Hey there. How you doing? If you're curious about what my experience was like as an ex-pastor who deconverted, literally stepping away from the church that he built up from scratch, what that experience was like, this book is a great window into that. And so again, that one is available on Amazon as well. All right, so that's all of my shameless plugging. Let us know where you're watching from. Put it in the chat, and let me go ahead and take a look at the chat to see if y'all is letting us know. You know what I'm saying? Look at her. All right. I see people in the building. Man, wow, I love that. Russia. So you're the one in Russia. That's beautiful. Either that or we got two in Russia. And either way, that makes me happy. So yes, let us know where you're watching from, and then also check out our books. All right, so let me get serious and kind of talk about and kind of set up this episode before I bring Kyle on. And then after I bring Kyle on, we got to bring on these other former pastors and preachers. So when I deconverted in 2014 and made the extremely personal and difficult decision to step down from pastoring the church that I had poured nearly a decade into building up from scratch, I felt completely isolated and useless. Oh, I love that. Great Christmas gifts. Yes. And the biggest question was, what would I do with all these years of wasted experience? What would my relationships look like now that God was no longer a central figure in my imagination? I had fathers in the gospel whose advice I'd never be able to seek again, even truthfully trust. I had brothers in the gospel who I once had regular conversations with about the ups and downs of ministry. We would literally stay on the phone to all times of night, talking through the struggles and what we were dealing with, and when our prayers wasn't working. And that was one of the beautiful things. I miss having that sense of honesty with each other, because even though we talk about things, with our members when we're counseling them and when we're preaching from the pulpit, in the brotherhood of things, you can talk to each other and be a little honest. But I also had sons in the gospel who regularly sought my advice and insight, who will likely never see me as a credible source of guidance again. That hurt. It had me wondering, like, where do I go from here? Will I ever be valuable again? But then also, the conversations that once satisfied my soul started to sound more and more like the uninformed chatter of children. So it wasn't just that I wasn't invited at that table. I don't think I no longer wanted to have a seat at that table anymore. I was no longer interested in their conversations and the things that they were interested in. I had no other table to transition to either, though. And so I was alone as an ex-pastor in a highly religious society that made me feel like a fish out of water. And then I learned about Dan Barker, who was an evangelical preacher for 19 years until he gave up his faith. And that's how he says it. He said he didn't lose it. He gave it up on purpose, willingly, gave up his faith, later becoming the co-founder of the Clergy Project and the co-president of Freedom from Religion. That was a breath of fresh air for this ex-pastor. Then I discovered Dr. Anthony Penn, a former Methodist minister who is now a vocal and active advocate for not only atheism, but for what he calls Black humanism, bringing an Afrocentric perspective to secularism. That was another breath of fresh air. And after a while, I was able to breathe enough to start sharing content on my own. And since then, I've been able to meet Kyle, A.T., Sean, and Drew, all former ministers of the gospel who now exist under this umbrella term of ex-pastors. And now I feel like I'm really breathing. And I'm so grateful to be able to be sharing the same airspace of such a brave group of friends. So I don't care what you've heard about misery. The truth is that liberty loves company too. So I'm grateful to say, without the need for any exaggeration, that there are more of us out here. And tonight's episode is evidence of that. That brings us to our theme tonight. How does it make you feel to know that there are an increasing number of pastors, preachers, and sincere believers who are not only stepping away from the faith, but making the brave decision to speak out against the harms of religious superstition and the need for people-centric community? Does this reality give you hope, or does it give you anxiety? What do you think will be the domino effect of more and more pastors and preachers defecting to the cause of progressive thinking humanism? Which, I'll be honest with you, that's kind of my mission. It's my mission to shake up every pastor I can. And if they're looking for an out, to be in a position to be able to give them one. That's my goal. I feel like that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is give pastors an out to do something that's actually helpful, to do something that's actually healthy, that ties into maybe what it was that originally got them into this in the first place. But what are your thoughts about seeing not 2, but 5 ex-pastors on one show united in their support for humanity? Whatever your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. And in a few moments, you'll have the opportunity to join the conversation and share how the knowledge of pastors leaving their faith is impacting your worldview. The Ex-Pastor Call-In Show is a product of The Bridge, as a part of our commitment to help people find community support and resources without the presupposition of superstition. We host this show monthly on every first Sunday, aiming to be a helpful outlet for non-believers, skeptics, and free thinkers alike who crave community and conversation. So if there's something you've always wanted to discuss with a pastor or an ex-pastor, here's your opportunity. We love to hear from you. Get your questions and topics ready. Then follow the link on the screen to join our screening room. Let's get this show started. Kyle, welcome in, brother. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great. How about
awesome.
you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I'm super excited.
I love your intros. I just love them because I'm kind of like feasting on so many things I want to chime in on, because you always throw out so much stuff. And you mentioned the first person who you kind of stumbled upon when you were out here just kind of breaking away from your church.
Yeah.
And you said that he said, "Oh, no, don't get it twisted. Oh yeah, no, don't twist this up. I didn't lose my faith.
Come
You know,
on, yes.
I abandoned that shit. Like
Yes.
I took it and put it over there. Like, nah, I'm good. I didn't lose it." And that's often something that, so many people hear, "Oh, you lost your faith. You lost your faith."
hmm
And I understand where it comes from, because in that environment, we're former Christians, so in the Christian environment, we know this very well. It is always our fault.
Yes.
It's never the God's fault. It's never the narratives or the beliefs fault. It's always our fault. And we would gaslight ourselves to the max to take
Yes.
blame for ineffective um, outcomes that would happen all the time. So to
Yes.
say that when people say, "Oh, you lost your faith," again, that was just another way to gaslight us. But the truth is, we didn't lose shit.
Come on, man.
In that regard, we just said, "No, I don't want this anymore." And
Yes.
that's a huge difference between the two.
Oh man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. That is, see, this show is already starting off on fire, man. Like I'm so excited. So
Me too. I'm super excited I know Sean a little. We spoke on the phone a few times, so I know Sean. And we've been planning to do something together anyway, but AT and Drew, I don't know. So I'm looking forward to meeting them and kind of hearing them, because I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it when I get to talk to people that chose to walk away from their faith. But
Yes.
absolutely love it when it's a pastor or minister or someone that was part of that group.
Well, see, that was the question that I was going to ask you before I brought them on. Like, how do you feel when you hear that another pastor or preacher has not only deconverted, but is out here like in this mission field doing the work of humanism?
You know, you were a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I was a pastor. So we get a chance to speak to something that we know,
Yeah.
right? My nieces and nephews were, every time the family gets together, the nieces and nephews, because you know they're the generation after us, they kind of get together and they get into their own little group and they're talking about stuff. And unbeknownst to me, one of these conversations was about former pastor Kyle, Uncle Kyle. And in this group of my nieces and nephews who are, you know, in their 20s and approaching 30s, someone said, well, guys, you know, we should probably pay attention to what Uncle Kyle's saying because he was a pastor. He should know. So, in other words, he should know this is wrong or fake or there's something majorly inconsistent about it. If he's saying it, he would know because he was a pastor. So we probably should pay attention to what he's saying. So that's
Oh,
one reason
yes.
why I love it so much because we know.
Yes, sir.
And we it's not like we weren't honest before because
Yeah.
we were sincerely honest in what we believed. But the honesty was tempered with a lot of emotionalism.
Yeah.
So
For
we were
sure.
honest about how we felt emotionally about these things.
Yes,
But see,
sir.
now we're bluntly honest about it without any emotions attached to it. And that's
Yes.
when you get this real sincere honesty coming out about it, which a lot of people think we're attacking and we're mocking and we're this, that, and the third, and we're not. We're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
pointing out how inconsistent and how untruthful these things are and how deadly, toxic, and damaging these things are.
Yes.
And I love it. I absolutely
Man.
love it. And I also say this real fast. Um, I don't attack people. That's not what we do, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But we'll attack the shit out of these beliefs. We'll you
Yes,
know,
sir.
we'll
Yes, we
assault
will.
these with great tenacity because
Oh,
that's what we do. And
man.
there's a huge difference between people
Come
and
on.
beliefs.
Yes, sir.
So my assault, like you were saying earlier, is against the beliefs, the
That's
narrative, the
it.
toxicity of it, not the people.
That's
So
right. Oh, I love it. All right, man. Well, I'm excited because I think we have everybody here. So I'm going to pull everybody on this stage, and I hope y'all are ready. This is the
let's
most
go.
people we've had on any live show. So I'm bringing everybody on right now, and I'm scared of how this is going to even look. But nope, it worked out beautiful. Look at there. Look at there. Awesome. Nope, I think this way is better. Okay, beautiful. Man, welcome to the show, everybody. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. We're going to start in order of screen. So I want to start with AT Coffee, and then we'll go to Drew, and then we'll go to Sean. And I want you all to introduce yourselves. And after you introduce yourselves, give us the answer to that same question I asked Kyle. Is there, like, how do you feel when you hear that other pastors are deconverting and are getting active out here in promoting humanism and more people-centric ideas? And just before we get started, I got to remind y'all, AT Coffee is one of the ones that I've been talking about a lot lately. He's a brother that I met at the Recovering from Religion retreat and just became a friend of my mind. One of the brightest minds I've ever met, has an incredible memory. It is like outside of this world and just a beautiful soul. And so AT Coffee, we're going to pass it on to you, brother. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us how you feel when you hear about pastors defecting and getting active in humanism.
Well, first, I'm kind of embarrassed at this point, all those nice things you just said about me. But I was in the I live in South Texas. I'm very isolated down here. It's just kind of like me. I don't know any other ministers who've gone through what I've gone through. But I do know some other atheists, but most of them are not even really ever been church people. Mm-hmm. But I was in the Southern Baptist ministry for 32 years. I was ordained. I was licensed in 1984 in October, and then I was also ordained in October of 1990. And the church I was at, I had been there for almost 19 years when I got run off, basically because I had deconverted in 2010, and then in 2016 I got run off because they figured out I didn't like Donald Trump, and so they started digging around in my background, and they found out I had done a wedding for a couple of my atheist friends, and they got on my case about it, and it took me to the director of missions. For those of you who aren't Baptist, the director of missions is the nearest thing to the bishop that you're ever going to find in any Baptist denominational setup. And like they wouldn't tell me why they wanted to talk to me. They're just saying, you need to meet us here at such and such time. So I went over there, and they said, are you an atheist? And I sat there for a second, and I thought, okay, I've been doing this undercover thing because I have sick parents to take care of. Should I? And I thought I could say, well, that's my honey trap, the honey pot that I set up to get atheists to come so I can like convert. And I said to myself, nah, I'm tired of playing this game because I don't believe this crap anymore. And I said, yeah, I am an atheist, and I've been an atheist for 6 years. And they're like, and then they said, well, you need to resign. Okay, so I resigned right there. And since then, though, I found out about the Clergy Project in 2011, and that's when I joined up in April of 2011. But I've been, I get excited when I hear about other men of God who finally went ahead and said, hey, I can't do this anymore. Most of them, they give me a sense of hope that maybe the superstition and the delusion that we were admired in is actually escapable, because some people are not they seem like they're never going to come out. But I think if you have a preacher talking to them, maybe they have a better chance of coming out of all that. But I'm glad there are so many people who are ministers who are escaping from this. The problem I have still is I haven't been able to figure out what to do with myself. All I know how to do is to be a preacher. I mean, I did it for 32 years, and I still haven't figured out how to not be a preacher. I still do weddings every once in a while. I've done I did a same-sex marriage right after I got fired. Then I've done atheist weddings, one just before the plague hit in 2020. And then I just did one after I got back from the recovering from religion trip. I did one up near Austin, some friends of mine, and I can't talk today, but I just really I really don't know. I'm still trying to get in gear. I realize I don't have to live back there.
Yeah,
but I'm trying to get in gear and find something else to do. I mean, I'm 64 years old. I just turned 64 in November, the beginning of this month. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Boom, boom. But yeah, so I hip hip hurrah! It lends validity to my own experience, and it lends validity to the other people I know who were in religion and have escaped. Because really, that's the way I think about it. I escaped. I didn't realize it at the time, but I escaped from something that was holding me back, holding me down, and oppressing me, and making me be someone I really wasn't.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I have discovered since I have been out is that I'm a level 1 autistic person, which means I mask a lot. I hide my autism. And when you're the preacher, you got to hide that stuff all the time.
Yes,
they're
sir.
not going to take you having a meltdown in the middle of a service or something like that. So I'm really good at masking. But I'm also, it seems like I could go to sleep and sleep for about 15 years and still not get rested up from all that. But I'm glad to be here. Hopefully I can contribute something other than this kind of rambling story I just told. But I'm glad to meet all you guys, all y'all.
Yes,
as
sir.
we say in Texas. Did I cover all the ground?
You want me to? Man.
Okay, good.
You did it. Like I told y'all, AT has an exceptional memory. I was not concerned at any point that he was going to miss at any moment. So again, thank you for that, sir. All right, Drew, it is on you, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing. And I don't know if y'all don't know who Drew is, like, yikes, like, where have you been? Please just Google the guy. Just Google the guy. I'll put it there.
You're missing out if you don't know Drew.
You are missing out. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You know the
and tell us how
definition
you
of
feel.
flattery, Darante. The definition of flattery, it's nice lies. Okay. But I love being lied to. So you're in luck. Okay. But no, seriously, thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting and such an honor to meet so many new friends and everything. I suppose my story starts back when I was a high school student. I was way too serious of a high school student, all about ministry. Had to catch up for all that and all the fun in my 30s after I deconverted. But started my first ministry when I was 16 years old, started preaching at 17, was at work with the Billy Graham Crusade, helped staff the Minneapolis Metrodome event in the late 90s, did all that again, way too serious. That was in Minnesota. I grew up rural central Minnesota. And then in the late 90s after high school, packed up everything I owned and moved to the big city of Chicago, picked up a couple theology degrees, pastored a couple churches. I found myself, especially with the second church I was at, in a much more, I call it a progressive evangelical church, which for some folks that raise your hand if that sounds like a total fucking oxymoron, right? Progressive evangelical. But we were, if terms like the evangelical left or the emerging church, if terms like that mean anything to you, that's more where I landed and absolutely loved it. Theology notwithstanding, it was a healthy church. We were all about building community, just thriving, organic, just lush, rich community. And we believed that was our purpose here on earth. When people ask, well, how can you be evangelical and progressive? What does that look like? I mean, if you define evangelical, sort of the litmus test for evangelicalism as believing that whatever the hell the Bible says, it is inerrant, it is inspired, it is authoritative. Yes, we believed all that. And yet we believed and interpreted it from about as far left of a position as you can on like everything. That said, though, it was over the course of 2010 through 2012 where I found myself fighting for my faith. I loved my faith. Here I got to play superhero in the midst of this huge story of God. Who doesn't want to play superhero in the story of God? Right. And yeah, seriously. And so I loved my faith. It was very comfortable. It wasn't one where we're constantly condemning folks or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It seemed healthy still. When I look at it, it was from a community standpoint, it was healthy. And yet the more I looked around at the world around me, it just didn't match up with what I saw in the scriptures. And I knew that, especially the more I looked at it, the only reason I believed that there was a God was because the Bible told me so. Well, if I don't believe that the Bible is a legitimate, credible source for truth and all of that anymore, well, then why would I believe in a God? And I quickly saw that I didn't. I couldn't think of anything. And yet I loved my faith. The idea of leaving the faith was terrifying to me. I wanted, so I basically spent the better part of 2 years begging and pleading for God to please be real and show yourself to me once again. And I actually left the church and left the ministry in a sense as a last ditch effort to try and rekindle my faith. Alas, It was just a few months after that where I finally came to grips with the fact, a couple months after I left the ministry, finally came to grips with the fact that yes, I had indeed become an atheist. And then from there, it's right. All the work of rebuilding, I had already left the ministry. I was waiting on tables and doing restaurant work downtown Chicago. Because all my ministry was in Chicago. Yeah, after high school. And so just trying to rebuild from there, not sure what's next. Eventually 2 years later, so I left the church and became an atheist in 2012, or admitted myself that I had been an atheist in 2012. It wasn't until 2014 that I discovered the Clergy Project, which both of you have mentioned already so far. Eventually started working with them as their communications director, and then eventually as their president and executive director for a spell.
Yes, sir.
So So I did that, and what an incredible organization. And the last few years, a lot of my focus is on trying to help people navigate life post-faith, and also with a good, strong dose of humanism, and helping people and helping humanist communities develop a more, what I like to refer to as a more embodied humanism, not just a philosophical humanism, not no country club humanism. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But real embodied humanism.
Come on.
And so that's what a lot of my focuses are. In answering your question, yeah, I mean, I'm always thrilled to get to meet somebody else who, another minister, another religious worker, another anybody, but especially another pastor who has recently been freed from the faith. And wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, man. Okay, see, like this might turn into a revival tonight. And since I see Drew got his drink, I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my little ghetto drink tonight. But like, oh man, yes. Hey, AT, this is what I was trying to get the whole time we were in Virginia. And in every store I went to, they had the section with these locked off. And I'm like, what is going on? Are these dangerous everywhere else? Like, weed is legal in Virginia, but you got the Four Locos locked off. Somebody help me. Fill me in. But no, like that man, that was so incredible. Like, that made me feel like preaching a little bit. But I told y'all, if you didn't know who Drew was, you better check him out. You're missing. And so now, Sean, man, like, oh my goodness. So I've checked out Sean in a few places. I think the first place that I ended up seeing you at was actually on the Afro Atheist with Esther. And I was like, holy snap, I would have loved to see this brother when he was a preacher, because I know beyond a shout of a doubt that he could go. So Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then also tell us what goes through your mind when you hear that there are more of us out here, that there are more pastors and preachers who have deconverted and are out here preaching this gospel of humanism.
Well, first of all, Kyle, my dude, everybody else, the two brothers, nice to meet y'all for the first time. And of course, the host. I actually would listen to your material around the same time I saw Kyle's. And it was it was your voice, you know, and you kind of just sit there, and that's, man, my brother, he just breaks it down, and you just have this voice. It's kind of like, you know, let's leave it at that because it sounds strange. But anyhow, I want to just say that I feel really good. I was just gauging my feelings while everybody was talking, and the first thing I want to say to my two white brothers up here, if you have not heard this, but a black man who does not believe in Jesus or any God, in the black community, it's safer to come home to say that you are a serial killer, and that you only focus on children, than to say that not only do you not believe in Jesus, but you don't believe in any gods. Now, watch this. When I left the street and I became a Christian, I was born again in 1997. And without going into a bunch of detail, Sean is crazy. Sean out there, he done became some monk or whatever. He don't drink no more. He done moved away, because I disassociated myself from my family. I left and I moved 600 miles away. Wow. And so they said he's crazy. He believes this God stuff. Guess what they say about me now? Sean, he's crazy. He doesn't believe in God. So I thought that was funny.
Yes, sir.
Because it's dang if you do, dang if you don't. Right. I want to say this. I'm going to jump way ahead to how I wound up out the church. First of all, I didn't grow up in the church at all. My grandma on my mother's side went to church, I know, on Sundays, and she was Baptist. I knew that because of the talk. And the only thing I liked about church at that point in time was at the end of service, we would go down into the basement and eat a lot of food. And I just wanted to eat, right? And so that was my upbringing. My grandma is Baptist, and they eat a lot in the basement. That's all I knew. Now, I knew enough because of the religious jargon to talk in my family. Call on the Lord when you've done all that you know to do, and it didn't work. Call on the Lord, right? So in 1997, I did that, and I don't know what it feels like to backslide. I don't know what it feels like to be in a church on Saturday and in a club on Saturday and church on Sunday. Like, I have no clue what it feels like to listen to what I'm about to say. I have no idea what it feels like to be a Christian man and then cheat on your wife or lust after another woman in your heart.
Yes, sir.
You understand? So that's the type of Christian I was. So now fast forwarding, church 6 days a week, 10 years straight. I was a police officer 15 years. And when I was a deputy sheriff, I would go to work at 6 p.m. I got off at 6 a.m. Had to be at church to open the doors at 9 a.m. We, once again, to my white brothers up here, black folk take a long time in church. We didn't finish service until 3 p.m. Okay, I had to be back to work at 6 p.m. When did I sleep? You get it? And do you know that there was times, even though we don't went overtime, that we still went and drove 100 miles away to another church to have another service again?
Oh,
okay.
Man.
Now keep this in mind. I did all of that with joy. Okay, I never complained because I felt that this was my lot, so to speak. So, we heard from the pulpit so many times that if you, while in the world, gave the devil your all, you better give God double or triple.
Yes, sir.
So whenever I felt, I'm tired, I'm about to fall out. No, wake up, Sean. No, you was out there partying for the devil. Stay up for God, so to speak. So,
yes, sir.
Here's what happened to me. I started off the background or denomination was Pentecostal. I didn't know that back then. There's something about we're apostolic. It's like you don't want to just own it. Anyway, so we were Pentecostal. You swing from the chandeliers and yell. Okay.
Yep.
And if you're not yelling, we're gonna make you feel real bad about sitting there acting like God ain't do something for you.
Like God ain't did nothing for you. Come on now.
We love revealing the tricks, but we'll get there later, right? So here's what happened, y'all. I got to the place where I got tired of hearing the words, so to speak, over and over and over and over again. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Martin Luther's story, but I was kind of like him in a sense that I'm tired of the relics. I'm tired of all of the I'm tired because at the end of the day, when you finish doing that, that same sister who came through the door who didn't know what she was going to do, she left out the same way. So I got tired of the lip service, and the Bible says, these signs shall follow them that believe. You guys know what comes after that. And I got to the place where at 2 funerals, I tried to raise the dead twice. 2 fellow officers. You
were like me.
Yeah.
Yes,
I tried to walk on water too.
Come on now. Yes, sir.
People laugh at that. And sometimes, what gets me is, oh man, tell me if you can relate to this. Sometimes I feel like it's a movie. It can get scary. Watch this. What do I mean, a movie, and it can get scary? I am no longer a believer because I was too much of an honest man to remain a believer.
Yes, sir.
There was no doubt that I never seen a miracle.
Come on.
When I started to define terms, a wise pastor out of John Coleman out of California said, Sean, just before I didn't know I was going to deconvert. But Sean, define terms. Don't let people just talk to you. Find out what it is saying. So watch this. And it would piss me off after service, or I'm going to sound like, I might sound like one of your old, might sound like you used to sound. But, you sit up and your pastors, you sitting back, because you claim that they were pulling on the anointing after the service. You're so tired. What it is you were screaming and running around, so you're tired. But anyway, we'll start sitting around and we'll just talk like, God moved in this place today, man. That, his spirit was so heavy. And so I started to define terms. What did that really mean? Let me tell you what it meant in my experience. Here is the presence of God. People laughed. People jumped. People shouted. People cried. People fell down. People shook. Some people foamed at the mouth. I was born in 71. You know where you saw that same behavior? Michael Jackson concerts.
Yes, sir.
So you know what it did for me before? Oh, my brother, I was kicked out of church too, by the way. All right. And so I don't tell a lot of people that, because those that I debate with back and forth every day, they'll swear that, oh, I knew something was wrong. You're just mad.
Come on.
You know, we all
Come
hurt,
on.
right? And so what happened, y'all, and for anybody else out there who's listening, I was not satisfied with the answers that I was getting out here. I was never a pastor. I didn't pastor a church. What happened with me, I did the work of a pastor. I was a minister of the gospel. I was a servant of Jesus Christ. I served the people. And I didn't need the titles. But looking back now, watch this. Looking back now, I can see, because being comfortable in myself and who I am and coming to know me, because I was not free. You know, he whom the sun sets free is free indeed. No. I didn't know freedom until I left the chains of my religion. Okay, now I'm free. Yeah. You see that? hey. To my other brothers up here, when you start hearing that, yeah. We come from a similar background in church. So really plain and simple. I was ready to die. I had these thoughts of being a martyr for Christ. My ex-wife would get nervous when she would hear me and my friend on the phone, and we would talk about how glorious it would be if somebody walked up in the church and dared one of us to deny Jesus, so we could show everybody who really believes. Because I used to envy Muslims. I envied them because I said, a Muslim would kiss his wife and children goodbye and walk out the door and go blow himself up and other people in the mall. But a Christian won't pay 10% of their income. A little 10%.
Yes, sir.
They won't give 10%. But these folks, they show you what they believe by their works, right? Faith without works is dead. So I got tired of the phony facade. It was over. Now, it was gradual. It took me 8 years to totally walk away. Okay? It was through education. I'm going to cut it short. It was through education. What happened was, I fell out with my pastor. I was an avid tither. One day on my way to church, all I had was my tithe. I saw a homeless person. And I said, God, you mean to tell me you would curse me if I would feed him right now with this tithe? And that didn't sit well with me. I was on my way to church. And for about 2 months, I studied everywhere in the Bible. It was mentioned tithing, tithe, the 10th, whatever. It took about 2-3 months. And I was convinced. And I'm like, why couldn't I see this? Malachi chapter 2, verse 1. O ye priest, this commandment is for you. Where did we, and you know, it's a whole bunch in here. It had nothing to do with money. We know that. But, bros, what makes it scary, going back to what I said earlier, is that I'm out now. Yeah. And I look, and it is unbelievable what I believe. But here's the scary part. Twofold. I really believed it.
Yes, sir.
These people that go back and forth with me every day, I can tell, see, you pastors, ex-pastors, tell me if I'm correct. When you were in ministry, you can listen to someone talk for about 20 seconds and you would know about how deep they were in their faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Certain things that they would say. Okay. So there was certain language, words we wouldn't use, you know, we didn't, that can't, and, you know, we were bold in our faith. But anyway, what's scary about that is there are people, when I ask this question, it hairs on the back of my neck. I know Kyle asked it, all you guys probably asked it before. Here's the scary part. I would ask someone, a believer, if you believe that God told you to unalive your child, would you do it?
Come on.
The fact that people pause, that's disgusting.
Yes, sir.
And so another thing I never did, and for those who are listening, what I never did as a believer, I never judged the ethical implications behind the God of the Bible's actions. Never. We used to sit up and preach messages and jump and shout over how God killed all the firstborn in Egypt.
Come on.
How is that possible unless something is going on right here? There's a disconnect. And so when I got out, first of all, when you ask, how do you feel to know somebody, there's other ex-pastors out there. First of all, I'm elated because when I first realized, it was like, listen, you guys know this. It was like, I'm losing it. I can't.
Yes, sir.
Because if this is not true, then that's not true. Then that's not true. And I started thinking about all the people who influenced me all of my life. Let me tell you who I was. I was the one up 5 a.m. crying while my hands stretched to the TV, listening to Benny Hinn say, sing it for me, saints, how great thou art. You understand? I was one. I was the one on TBN. And Paul and Jan Crouch and her funny looking hair. She was the one that started me talking or speaking in tongues. I followed her lead on TBN. I didn't watch television. I didn't nothing secular except work. And when I was at work, you can creep up on the joke was, bring a woman around Sean, do something, try. They would always say, watch, it ain't gonna work. And they would do it secretly. You could sneak up on me at 3 a.m. If my head is down, it ain't because I'm drunk, I'm praying or I'm asleep.
Yes,
you know
sir.
What I'm saying? And so I was too much of an honest man to remain a believer because I never saw a miracle. I never seen, when my son was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer at 7.
Oh my goodness.
Do you understand? And for all of those, well, they may not be on this line or maybe they are. There are many people who tell me, Sean, you wait until you go through something so bad. Because Christians do that. When they say, I'll pray for you, what they're doing is they're saying, I want my God to kick your behind, do something to you so bad that you'll say, okay, I believe like Kyle does. So, I lost my train of thought. Come on, bring it back to me. That's my hashish. That's my, my days are catching back up with me. But all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up by saying this. And so it was the hardest thing ever. I was scared to death, but I found and still am finding myself. And it's it's amazing. And the last thing I'm gonna say, isn't it funny how I didn't curse as much as I do now? When you guys were talking, I loved it. It was like Kyle was like, the stupid shit I used to believe as a Christian.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh shit, he cursed and he used to be a pastor. You listen, just the freedom of saying, you know what? If I want to burn a sage in my freaking house, I'll do it.
Yes, sir.
If I want to go to a village, to some remote village and sit down with a bunch of people and cry out to the sun and eat with my hands, I can do it. You get what I'm saying? And so, thank you for having me. And I know I was all over the place, but I have not. The Bible says, whom the son has set free or made free, something like that is free indeed, or whatever. But that is a contradiction, because how can you be a slave and free at the same time?
At the same time.
I was a slave for Christ.
Yes, an ambassador in chains.
That's
Come on now.
I was not
proudly.
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 Proudly. And so I love what I see. The best people in the world are secular. I haven't met love the way I have. I haven't experienced love the way I have from people I never met.
Oh man, yes.
Never met.
Oh,
right.
You know what's crazy about that? And thank you. This is the night to ramble. This is the night for ex-preachers to be ex-preachers. This is your night. And I'm just gonna lay these ground rules real quick. From here, we just gonna flow until calls come in. So speak at your own will. Just respect each other as we're going through, because we all got a lot to say. And I'm sure, just like me, many of you were itching to say something, as everybody has been talking tonight, because this has been just absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that I wanted to hit is that, Sean, you're probably one of the first people I met who was as crazy as I was. Because that was the type of shit that I was trying to do. Like, I was trying to raise the dead. I was reading, what was it? Generals of Faith. So I was learning about John G. Lake, Smith Wigglesworth, Lester Sumrall.
You ever heard of Paul Washer? You ever heard Paul Washer?
Yes.
Okay, man. So I meant to add that in. So I went from Pentecostal to I became reformed in my theology, Calvinist. And so yeah, but I could not sleep at night with the concept of predestination. I thought that was an evil idea. So I just didn't walk away from God or church. I felt that, oh no, all of y'all are none of you saved, none of you. And so I felt that the only people were saved was maybe in the black community was Tony Robbins. Oh damn, look what happened, right? I used to love Charles Stanley, who's no longer here. I would pick and choose who I said, now they might be saved.
Yes, sir.
But yeah. Paul Washer, man, you can be all, just God, beat me, God. Though you slay me, yet will I trust them.
Yet will I trust you.
Yes. Love the pain. Love the pain.
Oh my goodness. All right, preachers, y'all are freak. Come on, AT. I see your hand up.
Well, if I'd known everybody was going to be going into such detail, I wouldn't have cut mine so short.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm allowed to still be a preacher? Give me that mic back.
Give me that mic back. Yeah, I'm going to take it now. I was really big into Republican politics around in the 2000s. I voted for George W. Bush twice and all this kind of crap. Then in 2006, I discovered that the Republicans were protecting predators, sexual predators in their midst, child predators and this kind of stuff. And it got me to thinking, and I said, whoa, what's the deal here? So I started doing a little reading, a little investigating and stuff. And that was the beginning of the internet, when Google actually would tell you stuff you wanted to know. And so I looked up some things, and I discovered that really what was going on is that all these people, they keep saying, oh, we're the party of family values. And yet here they are protecting these predators. And it finally occurred to my dumb head that really what was going on was that they were protecting the predators because they were using the family values thing to get their donors, everything they wanted, while claiming that they were good for the American people. So the first step in my process was I stopped being a Republican. I became a Democrat as a result of that. So I'm rocking along here. And then I read a book by a guy named Francis Schaeffer. It's called Crazy for God. And I don't know if y'all know who Francis Schaeffer is. Any of y'all know who he is?
I heard that name before.
Frank Schaeffer. Frank Schaeffer, Francis's son, I'm sorry. And he talked about in this book of how he and his dad went shopping around anti-abortion stuff to all these big gun preachers like Jerry Falwell and the guy in Florida whose name just escaped me. I can't remember his name anyhow. And all these guys were really just basically thugs and power-hungry creeps. And so I realized that I couldn't trust those people anymore either. So I stopped following big gun preachers like John MacArthur and those guys. I threw them to the side. Then my wife we had a Lyceum program here at our local junior college. Michael Shermer. Have y'all heard of Shermer?
Yes.
He puts out Skeptic magazine, and he came to give his talk on why people believe weird things. And we were there, and he does this thing where he's going to show you this video, and he wants all the men in the room to follow one group of people passing this passing this basketball around, and the women to watch this other set of people passing the basketball around. And then when the video's over, he says, how many of y'all saw the guy in the gorilla suit? And one person saw the guy in the gorilla suit. And I'm like, what? And so he backs it up. And right out in the middle, this man wearing a gorilla suit comes out, stops, waves, and walks off. And he said, the reason why you didn't see the man in the gorilla suit was because you were paying attention to the balls being passed around. And that was kind of like, that's when I realized my perception of reality is not as reliable as I thought it was. And all these things that I thought were like spiritual experiences and stuff like that was now all up for grabs. And so that's when I started doing so. I went ahead and got his book, Why People Believe Weird Things, and read that. And then I went on beyond that and started reading other stuff. I read Hitchens's book, and I read Dawkins and the other guy whose name just popped out of my head. And I realized that I couldn't believe this stuff anymore because it was based on mistakes that my brain was making about perception, and that really God world, the world described in the Bible and in other religious texts, did not measure up to what the real world was. The stuff that went on in God world didn't go on in the real world.
Yes, sir.
And that's when I realized I couldn't believe this anymore. And I've used terminology like y'all were talking earlier about loss of faith. Yeah, I guess, but really, I done went and thunk my way out of my faith. Is what happened.
Bingo.
One of
my way.
AT, you mentioned political shift. One of my favorite things to preach on, and this is still when I fully believed. One of my favorite things to preach on was to compare. We would do, or I did it once, but it would come up. I did a whole series once on how we would walk through all of the political issues of the day, and we'd focus in one at a time and talk about how both sides can be defended by the Christian Bible. And so we'd go through, be it the abortion issue. Well, yeah, you can cherry pick verses to defend anti-abortion. You can also go through and find verses that support having choice, or that it's not a big deal at all. Or we would go through issue by issue by issue, because we were trying to build a community. We called it a faith community. We call it was a church, but we preferred to call it a faith community, a community of Jesus followers. Okay. And and we were trying to build it as diverse and like everything. So we were about half Republicans, half Democrats, something like that. And you know how contentious political beliefs can be. And so it was like, listen, you can use the Bible to defend any position. And most likely, whatever your position is, you've prayed your way through it. And yet you've still found the Spirit confirming it within. Well, guess what? Your sister, your brother in the Lord, they've also felt the Holy Spirit confirming it within them, which is why they embrace it. Why would the Spirit let us both agree on totally opposite things? I don't know for sure. Nonetheless, this is what it looks like to be in the community of Christ followers. Anyway, I loved that shit. It was fun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. This is awesome.
But yeah, you're right about that, Drew. You know, I can remember preaching about stuff, and I would tell folks, now, God's not a Republican, and he's not a Democrat. Y'all just need to pray about who's the choice he wants you to vote for. And you look at it now, it's like, what the fuck was I talking about? If there's morality, quote unquote, actually exists in the world, God's got to have chosen one side or the other. Man. And everybody in the church thought it was the Republican side, and I was thinking, no, not so much, at that point. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's like how if that all the time, you stop and think it was like 40,000, I think now, different denominations of Protestant Christianity out there. If God is, if there's a univocal message that comes straight from God in the Bible, why is there so many different versions of Christianity? There ought to only be one version of Christianity in the entire world if God is really speaking. It's a cop-out saying, oh, well, the devil led him astray. That's a cop-out.
That's a cop-out.
Bingo.
Okay, check this out. We got a question from Carrie Ann. She's one of our biggest supporters. Hey, Carrie. She said, what are some of the things you miss about church activities, and how have you found replacement in secular life? And whoever's resonating with that the most, go ahead, Sean. Pop with it.
I got real easy. You know what I missed the most? It was what we would call in the Black church, the difference between praise and worship.
Yes, sir.
Usually when you praise them, right? We jumped, we shouted, we were exuberant, we praised them. But when it came time to worship, there was this casting down of imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself above the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Let me do what I'm doing, y'all.
Paul. Yes, sir.
This is important. It was the freaking praise and worship.
Yes, sir.
I missed the music. I missed the songs and how we connected. We connected for that hour and a half to 3 hours, But that's what I missed the most. I guess the praise and worship and just connecting, the fellowship.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? No, go ahead. Yes.
I might be the oddball here, but I don't miss anything.
I mean, you're not an oddball.
Yeah, I was in church since I was a little boy,
Uh,
and what plagues me is why in the hell did I stay so long? You
mhm,
Mm,
know, I just did a
Mm.
post on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I was thinking about how long I'd been in church, and it amounted to be something like 38 years.
man.
And that number, I mean, 38 years.
Mm.
Like, damn, 38 years. And so I don't miss any part of it. And I hear people when they say the fellowship, the community, and those kind of things. And I'm not here to take that away from people. But then I internally asked the question, how was it ever really fellowship? Because you went to
Yeah.
church, most people get there like right before it starts or a little bit after. So it's not like you have this time and you're out and about with everybody before church starting, you're doing all this, hey, catching up and all this kind of stuff. While you're in the service, are you really fellowshipping? Because, again, you're not really talking or communing with other people. You're doing whatever the leaders say, the worship leaders, the pastors at that time. And what happens soon as the pastor says amen? Everybody's bolting out the door as
Hmm.
quickly as they
Mhm.
can. So where's the fellowship? Where's that
Yeah.
fellowship? Right.
Yeah.
And so that's my personal kickback when I hear that. Oh, I just missed the fellowship. I missed the fellowship so much.
Man.
Yeah, I didn't, I've been in church all my life. I never saw fellowship. I saw come in, be told what to do, and
Yep.
be like watching the clock if you're not the preacher the whole time. Like,
uh, I had a
Well,
revelation. I got a
you know,
revelation.
I,
I got a
Uh-oh.
I can
revelation.
resonate with that because I don't really miss the fellowship. You know what I really miss about church? I miss my nice office. That's what I miss.
And look, as someone who spent a little bit of time as a Southern Baptist preachers have nice offices. I'll tell you that. I worked as a community director of missions. So like I'm telling you, we had nice offices.
Yeah, I miss my nice office. And as far as I resonate with what Kyle was saying, because for me, most of the time, fellowship was not so much people interested in talking to me as Alan T. Coffee or AT Coffee or whatever. It was preacher, 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 preacher. What can you do for me? How can you help me? And it just that constant outpour of energy with little to no reference to who I am as a person. There were a few
yeah.
Can I say something? I'm sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry.
I wanted to.
Go ahead.
When Kyle was talking, I had thought I wanted to speak from a personal experience, right? And I think a lot of people can relate. So when I look at what happened in my life and me in church and all that stuff, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of churches, pastors, churches that prey on the pain of other people. What I mean is a lot of people, especially smaller churches, right? Usually you'll find either maybe they're the black sheep, they've had some type of abuse, something has happened to them. There may be some mental health issues. And then they come to this place. And my old pastor used to say, your family is family by chance, but it's the saints, our spiritual family, we're family by choice. And so he will put this emphasis on the spiritual family, meaning even more than our natural family. And so what happened, that fellowship thing, because you're definitely right, Kyle, both of you guys. What it was based out of trauma. And so I had all this trauma in life. And then I come to this new place with these people who embrace me with loving, open arms.
Yes,
and
sir.
So it's like we're singing together. This old Brawley man for the first time crying in public. I never did that.
Yes.
You see? And so there's
a humanity to that.
Yeah. And but don't get it twisted. On Sundays when I drive by somebody or a family on their way to church, it's like I might giggle a little bit, but I'm so happy. I'm no longer part of that.
Yes, sir.
That mess.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to add to that because I know Drew and AT are waiting to jump back in on this, but I do want to add to that because I do miss the music. Like I am one of those people who but I also feel Kyle's pushback because I have a real concern, a critique with the music. And when I was on my way out, it was something that I did. And even now in our community, we just started integrating music into our Sunday sessions. And so today we took a song that was really popular when I was a little bit after I deconverted, called Jireh by Chandler Moore. Jireh, you are enough, you know, and I will be content. I took those songs and I did what I fixed it. So instead of singing Jireh, you are enough, we sing I am enough. You know what I'm saying? And I will be content in every circumstance because I am enough. And so we sing that today as a community, and it was beautiful. So I miss the music aspect, but what I really miss is what the music could have been, not what it was, because what it was damaging. The lyrics, when I go back and try, and go back and wrestle with that stuff, I'm like, and I think I did a video called this, like we were literally singing ourselves sick. You know what I'm saying? Like I was singing stuff like, I give myself away so you can use me. You know, like, and I would like, cause I was a worshiper, and kind of like AT mentioned, I'm autistic, you know, I'm on that spectrum. And so I emotionally connect with things in a different level. And I never could understand that. And so that, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, made me a very effective preacher, because I could really demonstrate my emotions through songs and through singing and through ministering these music. And so I'd get into these songs and I'd act this stuff out. And then now when I look back over my life, I'm like, bruh, this stuff was sickening. This was sickening. Like AT, you were there at the Recovering from Religion when I talked about, like, one of my favorite scriptures was before, it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. You know, or that I become all things to all men that I may save some. And so completely giving up my own sense of autonomy, agency, and authenticity to become something that I didn't really know was going to be effective or not. And so the music I loved, and I think somebody put it in the chat, it was the messaging that grew to be sickening for me. But I do miss that opportunity of coming together with other people. And I talk to my kids about it because I have a whole family of non-believers. There's 6 of us in this household, and we're all non-believers. And my kids are all teenagers. But I still tell them, I said, the reason I still listen to gospel music every now and then is the same reason I listen to hip hop. It's because it's community music. It's music that everybody can participate in. Multiple people can have a part in. And so, okay, so that's my little fit. Like, Drew, I know you were itching to get in. AT, y'all talk. Like, I'm gonna shut up for a minute.
I can just throw in something real quick here. I'll try and make it quick. So what I've seen, something I've seen over the last 12 years since I've been out of ministry, out of this whole church game, this whole faith game, is former believers, non-theists, are always asking me, how do we rebuild community? How do we reconnect, right? Like, it's a big thing. And so, and here's what I think it comes down to is, because I've also had, especially just recently, I've had more of them, questions from other people who are lifelong atheists. And they're like, I don't get it. All you formerly Christian folk are always wanting to build community, while the lifelong atheists are like, I don't get it. Like, don't y'all have relationships? Don't you already have connections? Where are you looking for this community? And here's where I think we're set up for a lot of us. We're set up, and I love the analysis that I think it was Sean. I think you were the one that mentioned it, but maybe it was Kyle. It's starting to blur back a little bit, but I love that analysis in terms of, well, where was the actual fellowship? It was Kyle, I think. And where was the actual, so I love that analysis, but we've been set up to assume, to create sort of a craving, a hole in us that can only be filled. Well, here's how it works. We're raised, those of us raised in church world, though, hey there, Pooch. How you doing, Pooch? Hey there, Poochy Pooch. We're raised in church world being told that there's that the only way to find true community is through the church. So we're brought up to think you have to have community, and the only real community is the church. So you have to crave what we give you. So then we come out of the church and we still have, it's kind of like for some of us, I don't know if any of us fall into this, but I know a lot of folks out there, even after you no longer believe that there's a God, you still fear hell, still fear condemnation. It's like it's built so deep in our psychology for some of us. And I think there's a similar thing with this whole church equals community thing, where on a deeper level, on a psychological level, we have it ingrained in us that we have to have community, and that church is the only way to really get that community. And now we're no longer theists. We're out of church world. And yet now we're just working on autopilot. Like, well, fuck, where the fuck do I find my community now? And we're just like on this ever ongoing search for this magic atheistic community that's out there, and we just never find it. And so, there's all kinds of different types of community in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, Minnesota here. There's this amazing atheist church. They don't use the term church, but you walk in, it feels like a Protestant church service. There's pews, and you sing out of hymnals, but it's 100% non-theistic. For some people, that's their jam. For other people, they walk in, they're like, whoa, this is not the type, I'm triggered as fuck. This is not the kind of community I'm looking for. Where's my community? And so oftentimes when I talk with people, I say, listen, you that ever ongoing struggle for quote unquote community, realize you've been set up to fail. Man. And so it's taking a step back and saying, what types of community am I looking for? And maybe I can't find one all-encompassing group of folks to fulfill all of my community needs, but were they ever all filled by one group before?
Come on.
There should be. Where now it's, you know what, instead look at what are your community needs, think through what are different, rather than finding one all-powerful community to magically fulfill all of my relational needs.
Come on, sir.
What am I craving? What are my needs and desires? And how can I sort of delegate, roll that off to different groups, to different settings, and fill my life with an abundance of relationships and connections, rather than some magic building that I go into and everything's magically fulfilled, because it never was.
Yeah.
That is excellent. Because I always thought I was a weirdo, because I never really have had this huge desire for community. You know, it's like I went to a Unitarian church here in Victoria, Texas for a while, and they went under, but it's like I felt like I was in church, and it's like I don't want to feel like I'm in church. I was in church for 40 plus years. I'm tired of church. I don't need community like that. But I really resonate with what Drew had to say, because I don't feel that desire or that need to have a one-stop shop for community. I have friends, and my friends are my community, and we don't have to all get together place. And I've always been kind of a loner type person, I guess, but I agree. Hey, total up, dude. I agree with you 100%.
Well, that really tapers on something that we're probably all familiar with as being former preachers, is that there was this exclusivity aspect, right? So like if you were going to be a good believer, you need to be exclusively at my church or within my denomination. If you lived in my city, you needed to be at my church. And imagine going back to the days when you were actively on staff, on pastoral staff. Imagine if somebody in your church would have came and said, hey, I'm going to come here on Sundays, but then on Wednesdays, I'm going to go to such and such's church. Or if they would have came and said, hey, I'm going to come here on first and third Sundays, and then on second and fourth Sundays, because I love what this other community is doing, I'm going to go over there. Can y'all tell me how that would have went over?
I actually had that
violation of club rules.
I had different people would show up for Sunday school, and then they'd leave and go to church somewhere else because they liked the Sunday school. And I talked to them, and one of them, the Sunday school director, made him a teacher. But he'd come to Sunday school, and then he'd leave to go to church somewhere else. And I had a lady like that later. And it was weird. It's like, okay, you like my church enough to come to my Sunday school, but you don't like my church to come to church. And I don't know if it's because both the churches I pastored were extremely small, and the congregation was extremely conservative. So we didn't sing contemporary praise hymns. I mean, we're singing out of the book, Rock of Ages, cleft for me, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
and, yeah. I mean, we were old time Baptists. We sang.
Oh man,
the church of the frozen chosen. That's what we.
That's it. That's what we used to go.
Yeah, we were what would be described in some of the church literature I used to read as a family chapel church. There was one family that kind of ran everything.
Yes.
And I
pastored one of those.
Yeah, and it's something else. They didn't this one lady, she didn't like the fact that I had a cross put up in the baptistry because some people had made these gorgeous cedar crosses for us and gave them to us for fucking free.
Wow.
And we had to redo the back of the baptistry because the termites ate out the picture of the River Jordan in the background. And so we did it. And we put these crosses up, and she was having a cow. People are going to think we're Catholic. I said, do you see anybody hanging up there on that thing? I was fighting with this woman all the time.
Oh, church people are weird, man. Yes.
The joke about fighting over the color of the carpet. This woman was upset because we had these gorgeous crosses that a man handmade for us and gave them to us. Out of cedar, man. And the way I remember at the time, the way the cedar was colored, it looked like you could tell where Jesus had his head up against the wood and the arms. I mean, it was a Baptist wet dream, just about. It was just
shit. Maybe I do want to go to this church.
Like, I don't think I'd ever want to be caught in a Baptist wet dream. That seems to be like I feel like there's some burning crosses involved there, and just like it just feels like it'd be uncomfortable for a black person. I'm just saying, I just feel like I wouldn't.
Because I had some people in my church that probably would have been more than happy to provide you with that experience.
I believe it. I told you, AT, I worked with the Southern Baptists for a while. They did not disappoint my expectations.
Can I ask y'all a question? Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
I was the wild olive branch plucked off. That's what they called me, right? Because this question, watch this. If Jesus is Lord, all right, is Jesus Lord or is the board Lord? I can never understand that. You guys are just bored. It seemed like the board ran it.
Come on now.
Well, if I led the board, then they're one and the same, right?
Yeah.
Ought to be, but
I've understood that.
I had problems with deacons all the time. Keeping them was the main thing. Was they would die. They just
That's the other side of that spectrum, isn't it?
Messed up the whole healing ministry. There goes the healing ministry.
There was a lot of times I was the youngest guy at church, and I was the pastor.
Oh,
wow.
And because I was 56 when they ran me off, but I was the youngest guy there. I'd have people in their 70s, 80s.
So did they ever respect you? Did they ever respect you, AT, as the youngest guy?
No, they never did. I was always
the political stand-in.
I was a stand-in for a preacher they liked a lot better that was before me. The preacher that's just before you, he's dirt, but the one before him is a god in their minds.
Damn.
And then this guy retired, and he lived right up there from church. He came and joined the church. So I had that competition going on all the time. Brother Marcus. Brother Marcus. Oh, Brother Marcus. My wife has a music degree, and I was having her lead music at church because we didn't have anybody leading music at that particular moment.
That's typically how that goes.
We got in the deacons meeting, and the deacons wanted to hire him to lead music in the church. They weren't paying my wife anything, but they wanted to hire him to lead music in the church. And about that time, a Methodist church in Cuero, a town not far from here, said, we sure like to have your wife come lead music here. And I said, go for it. So
wow,
she didn't have to sit through most of that stuff because she was leading music in Cuero. But it was wild. They were saying, oh yeah, he'll bring money in. Any money we spend on him, he'll bring money in. That was
that's how it goes.
How it goes.
Speaking of
I didn't
money,
bribe.
speaking of money, we do have a super chat in. Came from Jason Freer. He says, this is fantastic. And he wants to let all of you know, thank you for sharing your time and your voices with us. And then, of course, we want to say, Jason, thank you for sharing a little bit of, as we used to say in the full gospel churches and the word of faith churches. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your treasure with us, for sowing that seed in good faith, and that may it be returned to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men given to your bosom. But no, in all seriousness, thank you, sir. We definitely appreciate that. And dang, another one just came in.
Jason's out there doing the good work of the heresy as well. And so thanks for all your good work in Canada there, Jason.
Yes. And then we had Norbert just drop in with $10. You guys are definitely true fellowship. I love that. Everyone has a voice to speak and share. Love you all. And that is absolutely beautiful to me, man. Like that's and really at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So guess what? We have our first caller of tonight. Are y'all ready for this?
Let's go.
Are y'all ready? Like, I don't know how our screen is. I don't know how our stage is going to handle this, but we have Sherry coming in, and I see her backstage already, and she looks incredibly excited. And so I am so ready for this. And she said, do you think you all had atheist or skeptical children in your audience? And how did you address them while you were preaching? Oh, this is a good question. So I'm going to read that back again, and we can go ahead and bring her on stage, because I do want her to ask this question in her own words, but I'm going to read it. Do you think you all had atheist or skeptical children in your audience, and how did you address them while you were preaching? Hello there, Sherry. Ask us this question in your own words. Talk to us a little bit. Tell us what you want from us.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Cherry because I'm short, round, and sweet.
Yes.
Yes.
I actually I live stream. This is not a plug, but I live stream every day on TikTok in my Mrs. Claus outfit.
Hey, plug yourself, girl.
Yeah,
I ain't mad.
and I actually look. Today was my first day because I'm doing every day until Christmas. Because I love Christmas, y'all. I'm an atheist who loves Christmas. Okay,
yes,
for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons. All right. I love the consumerism, the capitalism, the TV movies, the candy, the music, the outfits. It's like Halloween, you know, but for Christ. So, anyways, guys, I was a skeptical child. I was an atheist child. So, and I put it in the chat. Imagine me not believing that the Holy Spirit is moving through the room, and I'm 12, and there's just like a bunch of aunties around me, like flailing around, like, and you know, like they're being exposed. It's just like a lot going on. They're foaming at the mouths. The ambulance are being called. You guys, I was legit terrified. As a child, I was terrified. I was just like, whenever like I knew, like, you could feel when a church service, like you could feel when they were going to go into that, like, and now we're going to praise and worship for 4 hours. And I was like, no, don't be that day. Don't be that day. I used to dread that day. Whenever they say, oh, guys, I think the Holy Spirit is moving, I would be like, oh, no, here it comes. Here it comes, guys. So, and I was on the phone with your wonderful wife, who I love to chat with back then.
Yay.
Yeah, we talked for a long time, and I was telling her, I think my mom had a subtle way of deconverting, because as I grew up, we went to more modern churches. We went from going to like deeply Southern. I had to wear a slit. I had to wear pantyhose, all the way up to Lakewood Church, because I'm in Houston. So I'm like, we went from all the way to the bottom.
This is my Bible, my very own Bible. Yes.
Yes, like we went from like the bottom. We went from, you know, like fried chicken after service to like buffets. Brian McKnight is booked. Like, you know, like there's TVs. There's like, we can play the PlayStation in the back. And I used to love that. And I
Super
also
friendly.
told her, I noticed how my mom's praise and worship, like, it always depended on the church, because whenever we went to Lakewood, I'd be like, why you not falling out on the floor?
Good one. Good one.
We around
Good
the good
Flattered.
white people. So, okay, y'all, sorry, but thanks for listening to me blab. I love it here. I love to be here, y'all. I'm the one that be in the Discord, so thanks for listening to me. But yeah, and me and Miss Thunder, we were a little afraid to ask you, because we don't look. If you were the kind of preacher who, like, you know, y'all surrounded a 14-year-old and you put your hands on them and y'all prayed until Sunday morning to, like, get it out of them, don't say it on this live.
Awesome.
Keep that to yourself.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, oh man. All right, so y'all have heard the question, man. Like, you know, did the thought even cross your mind that there might be atheist or skeptical children in your audience? Was that something you came across? And if it did, how would you address it? You know, talk.
If I could just throw it real quick, I didn't know what an atheist was. I really didn't when I was in
Yes,
church.
sir.
I didn't know. And so my thing was just preach the gospel and let the chips fall where they may. And if someone is not receptive, it's just not their time. God has not yet chosen, for whatever reason, to open up their eyes. So it was just, I didn't consider it, just preach.
Wow. And you know what, like, that's just hearing you say that really does resonate with me, because in my worldview, there was no such thing as an atheist. You either loved God or you hated God. There was no in between. You know, love for the world was enmity towards God. So if you didn't love God, you by just default hated God. So there was no atheist. And so even when I met atheists, my conclusion was you just experienced something in your life that made you hate God. And kind of like you were, Drew, I was so progressive with it that I was willing to believe that whatever you went through was sincere, legitimate, and valid, and that my role was to be a representative of the was still goodness in this world, you know. So that's an incredible valid point, because I know there was never a time when I was preaching where I even imagined the idea that there were atheists or skeptical children in my congregation. Anybody else?
Me either.
Yeah,
Me either.
I never have any in the congregation. I'm sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, me neither. It never would have crossed my mind. Because, you know, we were a church that we were generational. So, you know, my mother's generation, the generation before her, then my mother's generation, my generation, then the young people that were coming up behind me. So it would have never even crossed my mind that there were skeptical or possible atheist children in the congregation or young people. And we pretty much included everyone and tried to make everyone do something, you know. So it was, you know, a lot of young people were on the dance team or the worship team or involved in children's ministries and things like that. So the thought would have never crossed my mind, but I'm sure they were there.
My child, my children who are in their, oh my gosh. Anyway, 30, 31, 32. They told me around maybe mid-20s that they really did not believe all of that stuff. And that they were secretly listening to secular music and things like a lot of, you know, we're preaching hard, had no idea. See, a lot of the kids are unbelievers or what have you. And the parents don't know, because they sing in the choirs, they, you know, that, you know, the altar boy, choir, whatever the case may be. You're thinking that, you know, as for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord.
We shall serve the Lord.
You're bringing them up, you know, training them up, and
And we didn't have any children in the congregation, at least at, you know, when they were little bitty. Some of them I do know for a fact later on, because I was, like I said, I was at this one church for almost 19 years. So later on, you know, I would encounter them, and it's like, oh no, we don't believe that stuff. And I would encounter other people that, you know, I knew from when they were younger, and they go, oh no, we don't believe that stuff. We don't know why you do either. Okay, well, it's like, we thought you were smarter than that, but yet you're still there preaching all that. Okay. But yeah, it was kind of like Sean was saying. The church, these were mostly people related to one another to an alarming extent.
Yeah.
A few of them, I know for a fact, one of their kids got up and left church one Sunday, but she was like 19 or 20 because she wasn't into it anymore.
Was that a fuck you walk out?
Yeah, it was just like, fuck this.
Fuck you walk out.
A, B, C, D, E, F, U, and your mom, and your yeah, I get it.
And if you definitely wasn't singing that's the book for me. Something like that.
Ours was maybe a little different, and just because it is different, maybe I'll throw mine in quick. I'll be quick and we can move on. But not only did I assume that there were non-theists in the audience and amongst the children, but I knew that there were even adults who came regularly every week or mostly who didn't believe. So like one of our folks, he described it to me one time. He said, I'm not sure I believe Jesus was an actual person. I definitely don't believe all the theology, but I consider myself as a follower of Jesus' philosophy and social justice outreach. And so he and his spouse continued attending and were active. We did community service projects where proselytization was forbidden. If they want to know what we believe, they can ask another time on a Sunday morning or something. We're not here to preach. We're here to serve.
I love that. Yes.
So I definitely believed in a hell, and I believed in the gospel as we might traditionally define it. However, I did not believe that was ultimately our purpose. I believed and taught that our purpose was to simply live out the love and support of Jesus in the world around us, to be a community of Jesus followers, and to live out his teachings in how we lived and walked this earth. And not to police what other people believe. They chose to get out of bed, roll up their sleeves, and go help solidify the foundation of a widow's home in the neighborhood. Whatever they believe theologically, if we even can know what they really believe, that's not our space. Our space is to say, let's just roll up our sleeves and serve. And God and the Holy Spirit, the Spirit will deal with all that stuff. The Spirit will save them. The Spirit will do these things if they're open to it. But so that was our focus. And because of that, I think that really resonated with a lot of people who were like, yeah, I'm not even sure what I believe, but I like this idea of rolling up our sleeves and getting out and just helping people. And so I definitely knew that there were people there who were, I think this guy considered him a philosophical Christian or a philosophical Jesus follower. And I like that. I thought that was cool.
Oh, man. Okay, so I'm loving every bit of this. We've had a few more super chats come in, so I want to platform those a little bit. And all right, okay, so let me go back here. I'm sorry. I'll stop. Whoever's controlling, I'm sorry. Well, the first one we have is Mr. Biggity, $10. Thank you, sir. Like we appreciate that, and I'm assuming sir because of the Mr. If I'm misgendering, holla at your boy. Let me know. And then we also have Dark Side, yes, of D-Light Productions. Who, when you see our credits and you see the name Zernal Shackelford, that's Dark Side. He's responsible for our lower thirds. It just is an incredible support. He's an incredibly busy person, but reached out to us as out of nowhere and was just like, man, I want to support, and has an incredible media production. So if you're looking for stuff to do, reach out to Dark Side. But he said, this has been absolutely amazing. Keep up the fantastic work. All of you are great. And he sent $10. We appreciate you. And then Stacy. Okay, so keep Stacy on the screen for a moment because I have to speak here a little bit. And I'm going to move my ashtray because, yes, I am smoking right now. It is what it is. This is Sunday night. Hang with your boy. Stacy said, so many of my favorite people here tonight. And I have to do this shout out because and I'm going to shout it out every chance I get. The camera you're seeing me on, the mic I'm speaking through is because of Stacy and D. They sent it to me. My videos, you go back to earlier this year, they were me on my camera because your boy don't have margin. I got 4 kids, all right? And I'm black in the South. Income don't work like that, okay? All right, so margin is not on my side, but they sent this out to me, and they were the first live interview that I've ever done publicly as an atheist, ever. It was on the Stacy's Mom podcast. And that podcast, and like I'll be forever grateful for Stacy and D for this. That podcast took my channel from 52 subscribers to over 300, and that was in February. Today we're at over 5,800 subscribers. And so like Stacy's Mom podcast was a major catalyst for the work that we do on this channel. And that's just something I'll never sleep on. So if y'all are not subscribed, what the fuck are you waiting on? Get over there and subscribe, man. All right. Speaking of which, Stacy did have a question in the chat, and then I see Kyle has a question. Kyle is one of our other supporters, and so I'm gonna hit Stacy's question first. She said, and this is because Stacy sent a super chat. So of course we're gonna answer her question. Like, you know, this is like your favorite churches. It's pay for play. You understand? You ever did the money lines? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I feel like somebody got $500 tonight. This is it. This is that night. But Stacy said, did you ever have members come to you with questions that were possibly deconverting before you were? How did it affect you? If so, does anybody have any experiences where somebody came up to you, one of your members, one of the people in your church, who came to talk to you about something that may, in hindsight, seem like they were actually deconstructing? And if so, how did you respond to that? What did that make you feel like?
I didn't have any such experiences, and probably out of fear. Now, afterwards, as my church community saw me kind of come out to where I am today, many of them have kind of joined in my chorus, so to speak.
Wow.
So, but at the time, no, they would have been probably too afraid, and not afraid of me, because I wasn't that type of pastor, but just too afraid to voice their opinion because we were in that community and it was what we did. And so they probably went along with it because it was more tradition rather than it was something based on their heart.
Yeah. That tracks.
In my church,
anybody
you were
else
not
on that?
free. You were not free to doubt. Period.
No.
I mean, now in my church, it was fear. You were going if you spoke, and like I said, you know, everything was James 1:22. You're not going to be double-minded up in here. So
come on,
they would watch. You know, they didn't feel free. So if they had those, questions, I had no idea.
Wow.
Here's a real quick add-on to that, real fast. My sister was, we labeled her the worship pastor. You remember that time when in the churches, everyone that was in leadership, now we gave him a pastor title. So
yes, that was my church.
My sister, now she was the worship pastor. And maybe about 3 or 4 years after that, she came to me one day in the office and was like, "Brother, I don't want this pastor title anymore." And I was so floored as to why someone wouldn't want the title. Like, like I was troubled by it. And I never considered, until afterwards, we talk about it quite often nowadays, I never considered the burden that title gave her.
Come on.
It gave her a burden because she just wanted to live life. She just wanted to live life on an everyday basis. She didn't want this title on her because she didn't want eyes looking at her like, "Well, I thought you were a pastor."
Come on.
And so if there were people in the church that had doubts and questions and didn't want to do it and didn't want to be it and all those kind of things, but again, like Sean said, we were not allowed to doubt or to reject or to not be part of. That wasn't part of our church DNA. We just went along with it. And when a few people would kind of give a little pushback, it was confusing to us as leaders. We were confused because it was something that
Wow.
we probably deep down inside wanted to do, but
Yeah.
ourselves hadn't yet found out how to do.
Yeah.
Well, I know from my own experience, I preferred being called Brother Allen or Brother Coffee
Me too.
as opposed to
Me too.
pastor. I didn't
Me too.
like people calling
Me too.
calling me pastor. And there were folks, usually people that joined later on in my ministry that joined the church who would call me pastor, and I just didn't like that because I didn't feel it. I guess it made me
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I knew I was the pastor, obviously, but I felt that call me Brother Allen because I'm not any bigger or badder than you are. I just have something different to do than you.
I'm just you with a microphone.
And the truth
Yeah,
is, I should have. I should have
like you said,
understood. Yeah, I should have understood it because I was the same way. I never told people I was a pastor. I never announced it. People would come to my church, and new people, and they would ask people, "Who's the pastor?" Because I'd be sitting in the congregation. I never used the stage. I'd sit in the congregation, and people wouldn't know if they were first time to our church. They wouldn't know I was a pastor until they announced me to start to preach. So I should have understood how she felt because I was always uncomfortable with the title. I never promoted it. Most of the people call me brother, like AT is saying, or the young people call me PK, and I love that. PK, well, I'll wait for that.
I was PR.
I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I never had armor bearers. I never wore robes.
I did have armor bearers, but I didn't wear robes.
Always decline to sit in the pulpit. Even as a guest minister, I would always decline. And that would baffle a lot of other pastors. One pastor once scolded me and said, "Someone's give you that honor. Don't you ever refuse that honor." I never viewed it as an honor.
Like, bro, y'all don't want to see my face. Too many people can see me and my facial expressions. They do what they do. You don't want me up there. I promise you.
Hey guys.
One time.
I'm about to get out of here.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I want
love you, bro.
Love you guys too, man.
Sean, great to meet you.
Y'all too. Gotta invite me back. I love this.
This
is
this
awesome.
is great.
I wanted to say one thing real quick before I go. Two things. One, to piggyback, I remember when I preached at there was a female pastor who invited me to her church. I had my 3 girls with me, and I preached. And before I left, she addressed a congregation and said that I didn't know that she was going to do this, but we want to take up an offering. He's come so long of a way. He's preached to us. He's fed us and all this stuff. And I remember when she handed me the envelope, and it wasn't a whole lot of money, but I had this thought. I said, "Oh, wow, this is how it happens. This is how it happens." And so, because I can never really figure out why, let's say a pastor who knows that they're being deceptive, or they know things, but they won't tell the congregation. And I can never understand how could someone be an honest man and do that, or honest woman and do that. I guess I just love people like that. I don't think people understand what it means when you collect millions of dollars each Sunday.
Come on, sir.
My offering was maybe a couple of $100, and I was scared.
Come on.
Because I didn't know if I was going to pay all my bills on time that month or anything like that. And I said, this is how it happens. And so with that being said, on top of that, that's not related, before I get out of here, I want to tell everybody who's watching, I'm a father of 6 grandchildren, and there's nothing that my children can do to cause me to cut off their fingers. That might sound crazy, right? But the reason why I say cut off their fingers is because I'm being way more merciful than your God idea.
Yes, sir.
Is supposed to be the God of love, but yet has already prepared a place for you to eternally to be tortured eternally, or for eternity. That's not love. And anytime someone comes to you with some religion or idea and says, well, hey, yeah, it is what it is, but if you don't believe there's a threat behind it, simply walk away. That's unreasonable. And the reason why I like to use parenting as an example, because we all have someone, either we are dads, moms, brothers, we have someone we love. And there is nothing that they can do. Even if they're trying to take my life, I'm going to try to preserve theirs and stop them. I'm not going to kill them. And so with that being said, I wish everybody peace and freedom. The Abrahamic religion in particular, especially when taken literal, is an abusive idea. And I don't wish that for anybody. And so hopefully you guys invite me back. And I'm on TikTok. For the brothers that don't know, I'm Sean Towers on TikTok. And I eat pastors alive. They run from me, though. They run. They run, y'all.
They do.
Run.
They do.
And I don't do it once again. I say that with all seriousness because I love people. I know what religious trauma can do to a person. Do you understand? My daughter, who's 33 years old, came to me and told me, and I didn't notice until she was almost 30 years old. She said, Dad, when we left the church, she said, I was never the same. She could not make friends in high school. All she knew was church. And so when considering religious trauma, that's why I do what I do. Yeah. So if I can sway anybody from going through what I went through and others have gone through, I will do such. We'll leave that for another episode. I gotta go. Love you guys all.
Sean,
we'll talk again.
Listen, man, I love you. I know you got to go. Please check out what we're doing with Bridge City Global.
Yes.
I love to have you on the team, man. I definitely want to have you back. I done stole Kyle for once a month and tricked him into doing Sunday stuff again as a former pastor. So if I can get your ass in here too, I want to do that shit because this is how we change the world. Yes, sir.
Right. It is.
I love you, brother. Take care of what you got to take care of.
Yes, sir.
We'll link back up. I promise you. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Man.
See you, Sean.
All right, guys.
This is exciting, man. Like this is exciting. And we have another caller that's on the way. Let me make sure I'm looking at this chat. Yep. We have another caller that's on the way. But Matt, can I just let's take this banner off the screen because it is blocking Drew. Like it is just like in Drew's face. There we go. All right, there we go.
There you go.
All right. So like we've had a lot of conversation tonight. Right? Like Drew is too good looking to be hiding, right? Like that is like no.
It's all just smoke and mirrors.
This
all
is
just
a
smoke and mirrors, brother.
Don't be hiding him. Don't hide the good looking brothers. Hide me, No, let me stop. Oh man. So we have Mike who's getting ready to come in, but until he gets in here, I want to ask y'all because tonight we've had a lot of conversations. But tell me, like, what has really been going through your minds tonight? Because this is a different type of conversation. You don't get a lot of this as far as the online secular content for our community. And so this is definitely, like, Kyle, even from what you and I normally do every first Sunday, tonight has been different. And so I'm curious, like, what's going on with y'all? What are you thinking? Because I know, AT, you mentioned at the beginning of this, that your biggest struggle is trying to figure out how to be useful after spending that much time. Can I ask you, AT, and we'll start with you. Sure. Does tonight show you your value? Does tonight reveal to you that, like, even though that may have been a waste because I didn't get out of it what I thought I was going to get from it, but that there are, like, right now over 87 people and at the height over 100 people tonight who are tuning in just because they heard that ex-pastors are going to be here. How does that make you feel, Alan, as a former pastor?
That makes me feel like I'm being very useful because I'm able to share my experience. And people, y'all have experienced this, I'm sure. People, when they think about the preacher in a lot of weird ways. I remember when I was pastor, I had this one lady who I showed up at the hospital because her husband had what they used to call a mastoid infection. They're not very common anymore because of antibiotics. But he was on he had really bad arthritis. And he was on a lot of immunosuppressant drugs. And I showed up at the hospital. I got there at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and she shows up and she says, "Huh, you do something besides Sunday I said, yeah, I do a lot of things besides what I do on Sunday morning. And people, they think what they see of the preacher on Sunday morning is all that the preacher does, if that's the only time they come to church. And I think it's good to help people know that, you know, we're not just talking heads that are live and in person, as opposed to being on a screen, and that we not only did other things besides just stand up there and preach. Like I did a lot of hospital visitation, visit people at their houses, went to meetings, did administrative stuff for the association, all that kind of stuff. But that we are actually people, and that we have thoughts besides Jesus' thoughts. And now that I'm not in those things anymore, you know, I can be who I am and talk about those things in a much more realistic fashion, as opposed to having to cloak everything in Jesus talk. And pretend like God world is the world, as opposed to God world being a cheap ripoff, a superstitious, delusional construct of what the world really is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Okay. So listen, we have a question that has come in through our banners, and we have another caller. So we're going to hit this question first. It says, who have raised children during the before and after? How do you handle corporal punishment? And dare I mention the trauma and healing after? I'm going to start this one. Okay. And this is coming from Kyle Von Doyle. She's one of our most supportive members of our community at Bridge City Global. I'm actually pushing her into leadership because we are probably one of the only missional secular organizations that exist on this planet. And we are missional on purpose, and I'm pushing Kyle in that area. But I will say this, because this is an area that I have a lot of trauma in. I have a lot of trauma in because I firmly believed in the Bible that if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. So all 4 of my children have experienced some form of corporal punishment. And as I begin to evolve into my humanism, it absolutely broke my heart. That was a hard thing. Like, as a person who always just wanted to be the best for his children, to realize that because of a book, you know, you ignored their humanity, you know? That's why even today, I often tell people one of my first books, it was actually a second book I published, it's called Parenting on Purpose. I refuse to take it out of publication because I want to live with what I wrote in that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to run from it. And so the way that I deal with that trauma and healing afterwards is not running from it. It's being very honest and reminding my children that, like, nah, regardless of what your dad thought, that shit was wrong. That was wrong. Like, that's the only way you can take a stance forward. You know, you have to think of it in almost in a sense of looking back over life and saying, like, holy shit, I really didn't know better. But we often use that as an excuse, right? Like, I didn't know better. But like, it doesn't become clear that you mean that until you make changes, until you actually change the direction and you change the conversation. And so for me, I didn't run from that conversation with my children. I remember one time, like my oldest, he's 17 now. And this was probably 2 years ago. And I was getting ready to go get my belt. And he was like 15. And he looked at me because he's so much like me. And he's like, Dad, no. And I couldn't do anything but cry because he was right. And I was so proud of him for being that type of child, to be willing to stand up for what was right. All right, I'm going to shut up now because I've gotten emotional.
Love you, brother.
All right, somebody else talk.
You know,
I'll just go real quick here. I didn't have any kids, so I don't have any bearing on this question at all. I don't have any. Never had any children.
I would
Oh
say the
man.
same thing. I haven't had any children yet. I hope to one day have a child at least. And obviously, I don't believe in a God of any type of religious formality. But if I was trying to find a phrase to say, but in lack of a phrase, I would say, I thank God I don't, or didn't
Yeah.
have kids at that point, to this point, because I would have done irreparable damage to them. And just
Yes,
like
sir.
Durante is tearing up and feels that emotion, I feel that emotion as of what I would have done. And I
Yep.
would have hurt my children so terribly
Yes,
because I
sir.
believed in it. And I remember one day I was driving to my church, and it was right before church started, and I was running a little late. And I remember sitting in my car, and I had a flashback of like all these horrific beatings. They weren't spanking, they were just flat out damn beatings that I
Yes,
received.
sir.
Um, and I remember, because I'd always planned on, I'm going to spank my children if they get out of line. Me and my sister would even talk about it. Well, I can't wait to tear their behinds up, we would say, as if we
Yep.
ever had children. But I remember sitting in my car right before church one day. This was back in the 90s. And the thought hit me, about spanking. And and I heard so clearly, and I thought it was God at the time. And the question was, did any of those beatings you received make you into a better kid? And I knew the answer right away, like, no, they didn't
Wow.
make
Come
me into
on,
a better
sir.
kid. Not one of those. And I thought at the time that was God dealing with me about this, Um, and like I said, I'm grateful I never had kids or wife at this point because I would have just messed them up so badly. And not because I'm
Wow.
a bad person, like Durante's saying, not because I was evil or malicious, just because I was programmed to believe that women, I need a strong Christian woman that's going to be a good first lady, and you're going to follow my lead. And I don't care if you don't want to go to church, you're going to go to church. And I don't care if you want to be this, you're going to be this because I'm a pastor. This is what you do. I'm just going to follow that programming. And the same thing with children. You're going to be godly children. You're going to be obedient. You're going to, and I'll do whatever I need to do. Um, and I'm so happy that one day I will get married, one day I will have a child, and they will know none of that.
Yep.
Not any of that. I don't even believe in spanking now
Come
on
on,
any
sir.
level,
Yeah.
on no level
Yep.
whatsoever. And I'm not judging people who do, but I just don't see the logic in why an adult who's supposed to be in control, who's supposed to have their ability to, you know, handle a situation, why resort to that?
Yeah.
There's a plethora of other things you can do.
Yeah.
So, I'm totally against it. I don't
Yep.
see any need for it, and it's why are we doing that? Why are we teaching kids that this is the way you handle conflict?
That's
And
yes.
because
Yeah.
what that results to is, you know, okay, it's okay then to get into fights. It's okay to hit women. It's okay to
Come on.
bully other kids and all those kind of things because the parent is showing them this is acceptable
Yep.
behavior,
This
you
is what
know.
you do when you're upset.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
it's just horrible, and from my opinion, all the way around. And I'm just so grateful I never inflicted that on children. And I,
That's
I, I
beautiful.
feel your pain, Durante, and anyone else that looks back on now and regrets it because it has to be incredibly painful to think about. I made this mistake to these beautiful human beings that was given to me to love and nurture and bring into this world with safety, and I didn't do that.
Yes,
And
sir.
people say sometimes, "Oh, I was spanked and I turned out to be good." I say, "No, the fuck you didn't. You
No.
didn't turn out to be good because you were
The fact
spanked.
you're
That's
saying that is
bullshit.
proof that you didn't.
That's pure
Yes.
bullshit. You're not okay. I don't care how deeply you've masked it. You're not okay. You're not. It's impossible to be. But that was
Yep.
never intended for human beings to be treated that way, especially children."
That's right. Man, that's good.
Well, yeah. I mean, real quick for mine. So I do have kids. I have two amazing daughters, both in their 20s now already.
Beautiful.
Had an early start, and by the time I left the ministry and deconverted, they were already ages 8 and 10 for my two daughters. Now, I grew up receiving some level of corporal punishment. That said, it was much more moderated than what others may have been through. I know my mother grew up in the more fundamentalist version of corporal punishment, where beaten with a belt regularly.
Oh yeah.
You know, welts and all those kinds of things. Thankfully, she concluded that she would never raise her kids that way. Yet, nonetheless, I did receive some very restrained spankings while I was. They were done by the time I was, the second half of elementary school, I think. So, just for younger children. So kind of the idea as I understood it. So then, so my takeaway from that, I always felt like, and I was spanked a lot. I was a fucking hellraiser when I was elementary school age. Like one time I grabbed a Sharpie and drew drawings of naked women all over the outside of our garage. I was a fucking hellraiser. Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Drew would have been my friend.
Okay. I got a spank. But even then, it was like maybe 4 or 5 forceful swat. My dad's a strong man. He always did it. They were forceful swats, but then it stopped. And he always communicated, listen, I have to do this as a form of love because apparently my words don't mean anything to you. Maybe this will. And to me, it felt like it was a good moderated approach. I had felt while I was all the way through my pastoring days, I had felt that I was better because of it. I no longer do feel that way. But I did then. I felt like, no, to me, it makes sense when you're at a young age, when we're, especially for little kids, they're about to touch a hot stove. No, don't touch the hot stove. Well, they keep reaching for the hot stove, slap their hands so they stop reaching for the damn stove. Stuff like that made sense. And then in my mind, by the time they were elementary school age, now they should be able to hear and reason more. So you no longer need to spank, not even the very moderate. So that's how I raised my kids. That said, the older one. So, and by the time they were 10 and 8, I was long done spanking with them, even by the time I left the church. And my second one, the baby, she never really pushed boundaries. She maybe got spanked 2-3 times ever. The older one, though, fucking hellion, just like her old man. We spanked her all. It's like, and she didn't care. She'd tell, do it again, Dad.
That's my youngest.
Do it again.
Yes.
I'd be like, what the? Well, okay, it's okay. Just did not care. And I found out, and I thought that I was doing well. My dad, so I always thought my dad seemed so firm as a parent. The last thing I want to do is look like a soft parent because that was not okay. So the last thing I want to do is look like a soft parent. And one time he came up to me because my eldest, at this point, she was maybe 2, 3, probably 3. And she was just getting spanked all the time. And especially at their house, I'm like, oh, she's falling out of line. I got to show them not a soft parent. So spank her again, And my dad, one time, my dad and mom, they stopped me and they're like, we think maybe you need to calm down. And I'm like, whoa, my parents think I need to calm down. until I did. And I always thought, and I'll just finish this segment with this, is I really thought I was doing it well. And I found out in recent years, she's about to turn 22 now. I found out in recent years that she spent her entire early years, childhood, thinking I didn't love her. Which blows my mind because, like, I feel like in everything I did, I really truly feel like in everything I did, I bent over backwards to demonstrate that love. Every Tuesday night was daddy-daughter night, where I took both of my daughters and we went out and we did some fun adventure, just the 3 of us. And my thought was, if I'm giving, I was a workaholic. I worked like 80 hours a week. Okay. And my thought was, I might not get a lot of time with them one-on-one or one-on-two. But it's about quality over quantity. And I thought, you know what? With my dad never did anything like that with me. And I thought, you know what? If every Tuesday where I'm spending hours with them, doing fun activities, pouring into them, hugging them, telling them. I thought for sure they would not only remember that, but I thought I was creating such a high quality, loving home, loving environment. And then I found out years later that not only does she have no memory of those daddy-daughter nights, she thought I didn't love her. She thought I had nothing but, I don't know, just not positive feelings. Breaks my heart. Thankfully, I was sort of so shortly after I was left the church in the faith in 2012. Shortly after that, we were their mother and I were divorced, and for several years they were primarily. Well, on paper, it was 50-50, but they spent especially if I'm working evenings and weekends at restaurants, they spent the vast majority of their time with their mother. But then in high school, they each moved in with me full time. Wow. Thankfully, when they both moved in with me full time in high school, about halfway through, we've now had several years where we've been able to do that reparative work. Nice. And they both chose, it was their choice to move in with me full time due to other things. Wow. And so I'm just so thankful that I've had these years to do that reparative work. And it's within the safety and security of that reparative work that they've felt free to share openly and honestly from their perspective. But it just breaks my heart. And I wonder, maybe the dots weren't fully connected, but I wonder if the reason why she felt so much hate from me, my eldest, is because despite everything else I was doing, it's the spanking, it's the corporal punishment that communicated hate to her on a deeper psychological level. Just breaks my heart.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Drew, quick question. Mm-hmm. Did you and your wife divorce because you left the faith, or?
We both went through a period of deconstruction. Mine went all the way to full deconversion. Hers not quite that far, but through that process of deconstruction, we both just found ourselves in very different spaces in life and wanting very polar opposite things from life. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, it didn't make sense to continue the journey together. We did some therapy with a fantastic married couple that were therapists, and they did their therapy from a Buddhist, Taoist, Zoroastrian lens, i.e. not Christian, is the big takeaway. And they helped us see that, you know what, we have each gained about as much as we can that was positive through our marriage, and now it's time to move on in different directions. And so
that's healthy. That's healthy. I like that. My marriage, and I'm just going to throw this in there. I was married before my current marriage. I have such an imposing personality and such an imposing presence that it's often hard for people to see that. But I do talk about it in my newest book. But I did have I was married before this, and my marriage did end with my deconversion. Because it was clear that there was no way we could live in the same house and be satisfied with each other with these two different diametrically opposed worldviews. And it was rough. Like, it was a rough situation, and it took me years to kind of figure out how to navigate. But that's interesting. I got to ask Kyle, where did that question come from? Why did that come to your mind?
Because I hear so many stories of marriages that dissolve because one deconverts and deconstructs. And on the surface, I think it's tragic that would be the reason. I think on the surface that it's very tragic that we're so used to putting our beliefs over love and relationship and family and those kind of things, and that's just how important these beliefs become to so many people. And I probably would have done the same thing. So I'm not judging. I was so deep into it that way. If I had been married and she said she no longer believed, I could not see a way we could coexist. So I would have done the same things. But again, you look back with such regret to what you believed and how it would have damaged people, And as Sean was saying this before he left, is one reason why he does what he does is because he wants to help people avoid the toxicity and the dangers and the pitfalls of Christianity. And you know, Drew was saying this at the beginning, which I love, and I've heard this from AT as well. You know, we're about connecting people back to their humanity.
Yes.
Something that Christianity snatches away from you from the door.
Oh man.
And you know, I find no fault in being human. No fault whatsoever. You know, that every other species that's alive
Come on
gets
now.
to be
Oh,
that
that's good.
species. You know,
Oh,
and
that's
no one's telling
good.
it how to be anything. But in this human scenario, you know, we're not allowed to be human. Because God is saying that you're so flawed and you're so messed up, and your humanity, you know, is sickening to me. And you know, so I'm so glad that we're at the root of it, and we're pointing people back to their humanity and showing them how good they are, how perfect they are, how okay they are in their humanity. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Alan,
well, you know,
I wanted to bring this to you, Alan, because I know that you deconverted and you're married, correct?
Yes.
Did you and your wife go through deconversion together? How did that work?
She was actually kind of ahead of me because she was the one that suggested we go see Michael Shermer. But yeah, we both deconverted, and we're still married. And in fact, May will be 40 years coming up. 40 years together. But you know, I don't know what would have happened if I had deconverted and she hadn't deconverted, or she deconverted and I didn't. Because when we both found out we didn't believe anymore, she came to me one day and she was getting ready to go to her church, and I was getting ready to go to my church, if I recall correctly. And she said that she said, I hope you're not going to leave me or anything like this, but I just can't believe this stuff anymore. I just can't. And I said, well, you know, I don't believe it anymore either. You know, and then we talked about, you know, the experience with Michael Shermer, and she got her church music degree at Texas Lutheran University, which is a very liberal church college. And, you know, she had several instructors who actively challenged fundamentalist thinking and fundamentalist interpretation of the scriptures and that sort of thing. And it even gone so far as Dr. Beck, that was your theology teacher, right, Elisa? Yeah, Dr. Beck was, I don't remember his first name, but he published his own translation of the New Testament, demonstrating all the anti-Semitic crap that's in the New Testament. He wrote a play about called Jesus the Man, as opposed to Jesus the Christ, which he separated between the two, and some other books along that line. I still have those books in my library. But yeah, he and she. How long would you say that stuff been percolating around your head? Because you graduated in 2004, and we announced our deconversion to each other in 2010.
Wow.
And so she had that stuff percolating around, and I kind of think, did you want me to go see Michael Shermer because you were already kind of leaning off in that direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wanted me to go see Michael Shermer because she was already sort of experiencing that sort of.
Her mind was opening.
Her mind was opening.
Oh, I love that.
And so, yeah, even though like I talked about earlier, you know, I became a Democrat as part of my conversion. I blew off all the big fancy big gun preachers as part of my conversion. But that last step, that was the one, because once I crossed that river, you can't, once you see that your perceptions are distorted and that the reality you think is real isn't reality. It's like being in the cave, like Plato's allegory of the cave.
Of the cave, you know, yes, sir.
I've seen that I've seen what those are, and I can't go back there anymore. You know, so I had a few other things that really kind of confirmed my decision that you know, Lisa helped me get to was I found a website called Why Doesn't God Heal Amputees? I don't know if y'all have seen that or not. I don't know if that's exactly the way it's worded, but that was kind of the last now, because it's like both my parents had, were in the process of getting Alzheimer's disease. I knew several people that had lost limbs in combat or in other ways, and God wasn't doing jack shit for any of them, and He would not do shit for any of them. And so yeah, but we had a fortuitous, serendipitous meeting of the minds that really I really count myself fortunate, because I would have really been unhappy if we wouldn't have stayed together, because she's my little love, she's my little Daisy Bud. I got a Daisy Bud.
Yes.
But yeah, we're gonna be celebrating 40 years next year. And see, the kicker here is, though, she is she's a preacher's kid.
Oh wow!
I thought you were going to say she was a pastor right now.
No, not right now.
He's actually a pastor right now.
She wasn't.
She was a preacher's kid, and she ended up marrying a preacher, and she
Wow.
survived all that to come to reality, Realityville.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, that's absolutely beautiful. My first marriage did crumble because of my deconversion. And when I entertained my next relationship, I was very weary about revealing the fact that I was not a believer anymore. And I remember when me and my current wife, who most of you know as my partner, because she's on my show, she's with me on Sundays, and we have an excellent time. And she comes from an incredibly religious family. So when her and I started dating, her claim of honor was introducing me as a pastor, and it got very uncomfortable for me. Which is funny, because even when I was a believing pastor, I was very uncomfortable being introduced as a pastor, because that word comes with so many presuppositions. And I'm like, just because you know that I'm a pastor doesn't mean you know what I believe. It doesn't mean you know what I preach. And I used to always tell people, I don't practice what everybody preach, but I practice what I preach. You know what I'm saying? And so I never liked being introduced as that. And so but my wife, she comes from a very religious family. Her mother's an evangelist, and was incredibly effective in what she was doing. Her grandmother is very involved in church. Her grandfather was involved in the music and the Church of God in Christ stuff. And so I finally, because we had been dating by that moment, by dating, I mean living together. We have been living together for a year by that moment. Shacking up. You already know.
No wonder you became an atheist.
Right? And so I told her, I said, I got to be honest with you. I don't believe in God. And that's not something I'm ever going back on. And I'm never going to be a pastor again. Not in that sense. And if you want to divorce me, you have every right to, because I get it, And she was just simply like, boy, stop, get on somewhere, because what I realized, and I've turned this because my wife has given me such just being able to view her life and giving me the freedom to be me while viewing her life. I've learned so much about cultural Christianity, because I was never a cultural Christian. I was always a communal Christian, which means I've been a part of the community of Christianity ever since I've been a part of Christianity. I was at the prayer meetings. I was going to fast when the pastor and the bishop said it's time to fast. I was going to be at the conferences, the meetings, the seminars. I've always been a communal Christian, and I've always struggled with understanding cultural Christians, because those are the people who attended my church. 90% of the people who was at my church were only 90%, they were cultural Christians. They were only coming to church on the Sundays that they felt like coming. You know what I'm saying? But I learned so much about my wife, or I learned so much through my wife, because she helped me realize she didn't care about any of that shit. And so that ended up being what tipped her deconstruction journey, because she was like, I actually don't care. That's interesting. You know what I'm saying? But like it was stressful for me because I was sure, like, and that goes back to something Sean mentioned earlier, that as a black man, that there's no black woman who's gonna want to be with me if I don't believe in God. And there's a lot of our shows that promotes that ideology that if he doesn't know how to love God, he doesn't know how to love you. And so I was terrified that she might actually leave me. But what I want to highlight is my integrity as an atheist, as in a humanist, was that's your right. If you don't want to be with a person who doesn't share your belief, it's your right not to be with me. And it would be absolutely unintegral for me to hide that from you. And so I had that hard conversation. So the beauty for me, and of course it worked out for me, thankfully, because my wife wasn't communal Christian. She didn't give a damn. She wasn't going to church anyway. She didn't care. She was actually thankful, like, oh, good, we don't got to go to church every Sunday. Oh God,
I love not having to get up and go to church, man. It's so
beautiful.
free.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
So beautiful.
I didn't get out of bed until 12:30 this morning. It was great.
Well, I've tied myself back into like church work because our community does have Sunday sessions, but they're not to noon, and I get to cuss. And when I'm mad, I don't have to pretend like I'm not mad. So like the last week, my equipment was messing up. My camera was out of all acting up funny. And so when we opened up and it came to me, I got to say, hey, I'm pissed the fuck off because my shit ain't working right. Do you know how freeing that would have felt as a pastor if I could have said that? They're like, hey, the praise and worship team was crap this Sunday and I am pissed off. Like, that's so free. But I get that now because
I say that every Sunday at my church because, man, we had awful singing. It was bad. It was so awful.
Well, I wasn't there.
Well, yeah, when Elisa was there, it was great. But, when she went off to go do Methodist stuff.
No, I love the way Elisa checked on that. Like, wait a minute, don't come for me. That was why I wasn't there. It was bad when I wasn't there. I love that.
It was bad. And that's so very, very true. It was, God, awful singing. Didn't have a piano player most of the time, and the lady later on who did try to play the piano didn't know what the fuck she was doing. And then we got this laptop and put bootleg downloaded songs, music from other people on it, and half the time that wasn't even right. It was awful.
Man.
I do not. It wasn't praise and worship. It was praise and don't grit your teeth too much.
Well, listen, I want to make sure that I honor your time because I did tell you all that it will be 2 hours, and we've definitely gone over that mark. But this has been an amazing time. Like, I knew this was going to be incredible. I didn't know this was going to be this good. Like, we even had someone to drop, and we feel like we haven't missed a beat. And so what I want to do at this moment, we're going to get ready to close out. I want to open the stage up to each of you. We'll start with Alan, then we'll go to Drew, and then we'll close out with Kyle. And for my moderators in the chat, your boy is about to run to the restroom. So please navigate this for me if I don't get back in time. But Alan, if you would jump on and tell us a little bit about where people can find you, the work that you do, what you're working on right now, how we can support you, and just share some closing thoughts. And I hate to make you feel like a preacher again, but this is what this is. This is the Ex-Pastors Call-In Show. So this is your moment to kind of give us your version of the benediction for the night.
Okay. What am I working on? Well, I've been working. I'm not working on anything in particular right now, just trying to keep my ancient car running and fix things around my ancient house so they don't fall in on top of me. But I spend a lot of time on YouTube, on Facebook, talking to people about Christianity and things like that. I also spend time with the Democratic Party doing stuff to, well, we didn't do a very good job this last time apparently, but election related things. I'm trying to decide. I'm working on trying to decide how I can put myself out there more than what I'm doing now, because I do have another channel that it's called Driven to Know, that I made videos for a couple of years, and then I stopped doing that after the January 6th thing. It just freaked me out so much. I just haven't been able to get back on there and do anything. And so, yeah, I don't have a lot of things going on right now. Just trying to survive, because I get Social Security and that's about it. And it with inflation and such, it's hard to survive. I wish I could tell you some cool, lofty, high up things that I was doing, but I really don't have anything like that. I'm just trying not to go broke. And that's all I got to say about that. I guess I can talk some more now.
Yeah.
Since I'm the okay, Ari, we're back now. Okay, but that's all. That's really all I can say. I wish I could say I had some big project going and I was changing the world and stuff, but just being me and trying to represent. Oh, I forgot about the movie that Darante and I are both in. Yeah, we're in the process of making a movie called Heathens, talking about just people who have left Christianity in general, put out by Pale Blue Dot film company, and under the auspices of David Cohen and Sean Harden. And we've been in that quite a bit. It's supposed to be out, I believe, in summer of 2025, from what I understand, although I think we're going to do a little more filming here in the near future. Okay, now I'm done.
All right.
I can talk good. That's about it.
Does that mean I'm up next? Did I follow that correctly, Darante?
That is right. You are absolutely up next. I do want to thank Alan just for sharing that little tidbit, because yes, we are working on a documentary together, and I think we're supposed to be in LA together in December coming up, and so yeah. I am looking forward to that. Yes, I
am too. Looking forward to seeing my brother again.
Absolutely, man. All right, Drew, it's on you.
Yeah, well, I want to acknowledge and thank you, Alan, AT, for what you shared there. I mean, that's really the number one thing as I talk with former ministers and other religious leaders around the world. The number one struggle is trying to figure out how the fuck to survive, to keep bread on the table, to feed your family, or even just yourself. It is not easy when everything you've done has been poured into this, something that others want to claim you never actually believed. Fuck that.
Yeah.
You gave everything in this shit, right? And now everything is taken from you. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for sharing that. For myself, I don't do a whole lot online except jump on other people's shows. That said, I do a little bit of stuff on Instagram. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on Facebook. I'm on other ones as well, but those are probably the primary two that I do stuff on. Instagram is really the primary one. It's easy to find me. Just type in I'm the only person literally in the world with my name. So just Google that and it'll come up. Website, drewbakius.com, things like that. If you want to follow along with what I'm doing or look at videos that I've done. I do speak at conferences on occasion, so you can keep an eye out for those. I do, if you're interested, one book that I've written that folks might be interested in, The Rise and Fall of Faith, God to Godless Stories for Christians and Atheists. And so a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight is in here in much more detail. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, just reach out, say hello, connect with me, fam. And again, thanks so much for having me in. If you're ever passing through, I'll say this one final thing. If you're passing through the Twin Cities at all, or certainly if you live here, so there's a variety of different humanist and non-theistic community options that we have. There's a fairly vibrant non-theistic community, specifically humanist community, meets on Sunday mornings. It's one I mentioned earlier, kind of feels like atheist church, feels very much like church. So there's that. Also, I've started doing every month or so post-faith house parties. So it's just a fucking house party, y'all.
Yes.
But very post-faith, like looking to build just organic, vibrant community, just hanging out. We don't all necessarily need to sit in a gym someplace with sitting in a bunch of chairs looking at somebody talk from a stage. Okay.
Yes,
like,
sir.
really? More of this? Really? We're free. Really? We want more of listening to some dude on a stage? So though sometimes I am the dude on the stage, what I think is most helpful is really just gathering in homes, hanging out, maybe getting a little fucked up. Sometimes that helps build community.
I like that.
And just hanging out. So if you're ever passing through the Twin Cities, reach out, say hello, and maybe we'll have you pass through. All right. Thanks again.
I love that. And and just to shout that out, Drew, I'm a little fucked up right now. So this tracks, But like for everybody who's watching, and I've said this about Kyle a few times, anybody you see on the Ex-Pastor Call-In show, please know I am trying my damnedest to recruit their asses to the work that we're doing, because these are phenomenal people. Everybody you've heard from tonight, and I'm gonna let Kyle talk in a few because I know he's itching to talk. But everybody you've seen tonight, like, I'm just gonna be absolutely vulnerable and honest. This has been healing for me. This is the first time since I've deconverted that I've been able to sit in a room with other former pastors and have conversation and actually have people talking on a frequency and a wavelength that I can identify with. I think we've all been through the deconstruction community, and there are a lot of powerful stories out there, all stories because of our role as pastors that we can empathize with. But it's when you hear other pastors where you can move from empathy to sympathy to that's the same thing that I dealt with. Those were the same feelings that I dealt with, even though we come from different backgrounds. It's so this has been just absolutely healing for me, therapeutic even. And so I'm so grateful for all of you. And so I'm circling back to, I'm trying to recruit all of these people, because Alan said something at the beginning that is something that it's one of the primary reasons that I do the work that I do, is because I know that there are other people like me who were trying their best to do their best that now don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And on the other hand, I know that there is a growing community of people out here who are looking for people who are willing to take on the responsibility of building a little bit here and a little bit there. And I'm sure you all can testify, everybody who's watching tonight, that you'd love to be a part of any community that any of these folk tonight were leading. Because I think what we all see, because this is what I struggle with now, and y'all tell me if y'all feel me here. Like, even when we're putting together, because we have to be organized, right, as our community. I have to go back through paperwork and be like, oh no, this is too hierarchical. I don't like this hierarchy. Let's change this out. So we even change our words to the point where it's like you're going to have people who are going to take the lead. But the one thing we were pushing to our community today, that the goal is for us all to be leaders. The world doesn't work when there are leaders and followers. It works when there are leaders and partners, where we are all leaders and we are partnering together. And that's something that I couldn't see before because of my religious superstition. But now, as a humanist, I can see the value of people across the spectrum, because there are some people who their life is going to be about taking those big, bold steps. And there are some people that their life is going to be about taking those small steps. And the reality is, big doors still swing on small hinges. And so, like, the thing that I have to remind myself of is that even the people who are doing the smallest things are making exponential impact on this world. And we have to learn how to bring appreciation to those folk. And this is circling back to what Alan said earlier. That's something that I feel that we as former pastors are uniquely gifted for, that we have built that muscle for, we have built that skill for. And Alan, I want you to know, man, like I've spent so much time talking about you since I've met you, and not just to people like in my personal circle, but like, no, I got the receipts for this. I've talked about you on my channel ever since I've met you, because a part of my mission is making sure that people like you have a place to still feel useful, because your time was not a waste. You didn't spend that time in service to God. You spent that time in service to people. That's what we did. We just had to go through the bullshit to figure that shit out. And you are valuable. You are an incredible tool. You are an incredible gift. And all of you are. And I think our audience sees that tonight. That's why I love doing shows like this. So I know I've said a lot. Does anybody have anything to say before I send y'all backstage? Y'all all good? All right, Kyle, then it's on you, man. What are your closing thoughts for the night?
Well, just thank you for, putting this together. And it was such an honor to be able to talk with Sean on the video, because like I said, we've spoken on the phone a couple times, to meet Drew and AT, just so valuable and such precious brothers, and I really appreciate them both and love them both. And I use the word love a lot. I throw love around a lot because love is really what it's all about. And I didn't really know love until I deconverted, and real sincere love, and I just, if I have any passion, if I have any desire, it's really just to point people back to themselves. And for humanity just to see themselves as the good that they are, to know that they're capable of making their own decisions and guiding their own lives and valuing their own opinion and trusting themselves. That's the passion I have, to divert people's attention away from a deity or savior, and point it back to themselves so that their eyes are opened and they can see their own worth and their own goodness, and really self-love themselves and self-appreciate and see their self-worth. So that's my heart. That's, if I'm saying anything, whether it's on TikTok about the stupidity of Christianity and what I believed, or if it's on Instagram sharing just inspirational stuff, or on Facebook where there's maybe a combination of both, it's really all trying to get every single human being back to understanding how good and valuable and perfect they are as themselves. So that's my heart. That's my passion. So thank you, Darante, for putting this together and allowing me to meet these brothers and chat with them and feed off of what they were saying, because the connection I feel of our hearts is really remarkable, and I really value that. So healing for you, and just added a word I like to use a lot, data for me. It's more data to validate that we're doing the right thing, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, man, Kyle, of course, I thank you. You've been rocking out with us since the very first episode. Like, we've been doing this this is our 6th episode now, and this has been one hell of a journey. We're starting a new year next year of the Ex-Pastor Call-In Show. This is something that the world has never seen before. And right now, we're at the end. We've been on for 2 hours and 38 minutes, and we still have 73 people tuned in. And because, like you, Kyle, I am obsessed with data. And so 73 people tuned in right now likely equates to roughly 500 people who will have been to watch this by the time this show is ended. And like, that is absolutely amazing to me. And then to see what these numbers will do, because this is the most popular show on our channel, to see what these numbers will be within a week, and to know that there were 5 ex-pastors on here, nobody who had a script, but people who just came and shared from their heart and from what's on their mind, and what they're dealing with, like tonight, like it felt like revival to me. I felt like if we would have raised an offering, it would have been a good one, you know, like it was one of those nights. And like I don't know how I'm gonna calm down from this, but man, brother, I want to let you know, and I'm just gonna say this: you reached out to me a few weeks ago and called me, and I have to let you know how shocked I was because it had been so long since I just had another brother reach out to me about something exciting for them, because that's a world that I left when I stopped pastoring. I didn't have that type of relationship with other men, with other adults when I stopped pastoring. And so to have a brother reach out to me just about something that was exciting to them, man, you have no idea how amazing that was for me. And so I am grateful that we are in this work together.
Me too.
And again, as I've said, I'm doing my best to get you back busy on Sundays. So keep watching out.
Keep praying, brother. Keep praying.
Yeah, I know it, right? Man, that's gonna take some powerful voodoo, right? Oh man. Will y'all say goodbye to Kyle? I'm going to drop him to the back as I say my closing remarks, because I've already taken way more of everybody's time than I said that I would take, because we were only supposed to do 2 hours and we're almost at 3 hours. So I'm going to keep this very short because everybody tonight was just phenomenal. And if you agree, I need you to do one thing after the show, or just even right now. Leave a comment. You know what I'm saying? Like the comments is the hallways. You know, like if you ever been leaving church, if nobody shake your hand or hug your neck in the hallways, this church sucks. You know what I'm saying? Let us not be the community that sucks. So let's make sure we leave a comment under the video that lets other people know that this was fire. And this was fire. I want people to hear these stories of Sean, of Kyle, of Alan, of Drew, and of course of myself, because y'all know I talk, because these conversations were incredibly valuable. I don't know who's in the studio tonight, but I am getting close to wrapping up. Let me see, is my wife in here? She is. All right, so we're going to get ready to do the ending videos, and I just wanted to let them know, give them that clue. Because we've gone so long. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell. Consider joining this community channel or content in any way that makes sense for you. And check out the merch because it's dope as fuck. And of course, I just introduced you to some new names tonight. So you've known about Kyle Butler for a while. But if you've never known about Drew, go check him out. You know what I'm saying? And yes, will I be trying to steal Drew to make him like a regular with the shit that we're doing around here? Yes. Because did that not feel like Pentecostal preaching when that shit was going across? Yes. And of course, like, oh man, Sean, between me, Drew, Sean, Kyle, and Alan, like, fuck the new horses of the new 4 horsemen of apocalypse. We're the new hotness, and nothing else needs to be said. That's the plane. So listen, if y'all want to see these folks back, please let us know, because they're absolutely amazing. They have a special place in my heart, and more importantly, my mind, because my heart only pumps blood. That's all that shit does. But they have a special place in my mind, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations with them. So if y'all have enjoyed tonight, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all of that shit. Come back and comment, because that's what makes the algorithm rock. And until next time, keep rising, stay progressive, and stay beautiful. If you can, we're going to holler at y'all later. And let's see if these credits get to rolling. Let's see.
I was living my life in the servitude of misunderstandings of people I loved. Giving it all, it was never enough. Because of the fall, I could never get up. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I am no longer standing under them. I was drowning, now I swim. 'Cause I found the strength within.